It is now 9 a.m. Welcome to the Saturday, August 8th, 2026 Town Council Budget Workshop. Our meeting is being broadcast, correct, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our meetings today will be broadcast live on the Town of Double Oak YouTube channel. Once on the channel, please click on the live button. Out of respect for all those in attendance, please refrain from talking to other members of the audience during the meeting and silence electronic devices while in the Cook-Wilkinson Community Government Room. I would now like to ask our Town Secretary, Daisy Torres, to please call the roll.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCormick, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Bump,
Here.
Councilmember Blush. Here. Councilmember Councilmember Wellen,
Here.
Councilmember Wardney.
Here.
Oh, quorum.
All right, thank you. I would like to ask Councilperson Wellen to lead us in an invocation.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to do the work of the town. Help us to be prudent in our decisions, to look for things that can help this town move toward the future which we all envision, to listen with open minds and open hearts. Amen.
Thank you. Councilperson Gortney will now lead us in the pledges. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Dan.
I drove up and looked at the school parking lot, and I'm like, oh my God. It's actually something else. Budget meeting.
So, Daisy, let's call attendance for Dan to make sure he can. You already got it? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, thank you. First and foremost, appreciate y'all being out here on a Saturday.
Real quick, are we gonna have public comment this morning?
Yes.
Okay, because when, after that, can we push the podium
Yes.
back a little bit?
Yes.
So that people in the audience can see all of us?
Sure.
You get all the attention.
So appreciate y'all being out here this morning. How the workshop's a little different than a council meeting. Most of the banter today will be between the council, the administration, or the town administration in regards to the budget and items in the budget. We will not complete the budget today or the next meeting possibly. It just depends. There's going to be lots of questions. There's a lot of clarifications. I do have a citizen that has signed up on the agenda item. So Deb, when we get to that agenda item, I will have you come up. So before that, I didn't have any other citizens sign up for non-agenda items. Real quick, just because I can, and it makes Chris mad when I ask the audience for participation. Would anybody like to speak on a non-agenda item? If not, we're going to continue on with the meeting, and I'll just skip that part. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, Chris. So today, what I thought we would do, council, is before Chris would like to do, and we've put together a nice presentation. Laura and Chris have worked on this budget for what, probably 3 or 4 months, I would say. It's definitely been a few months. Our new Tyler system enables us to go deeper and wider into places that we weren't able necessarily to go before. So before I call up the citizens, I'd really like to have you go ahead and do your presentation. And then I will call up Deb. I'll call up afterwards when we open up the discussion with the council. Does that work, council, for y'all?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris here. I'll have some comments as we go through this as well. But again, first and foremost, thank you all, Daisy, Laura, and Chris, for all the hard work and the hard work you'll do as we wrap this up by the end of September. We will have, council, as part of the next 2, possibly 3 council meetings, we will actually block out time to continue workshop conversation. So it's the way we've done it in the past. So on the next agenda, town council agenda, near the end, we will have a section to where we will basically have a continued discussion from today. It means if we get something done then, great. If not, we'll carry it over to the next meeting. And then if we needed an additional workshop meeting, we would schedule it as well. Are you going to cover the dates, Chris, in terms of this? We have to have the budget turned into Denton County, I believe, by the 28th of September. Is that correct?
Yes, end of September.
So eventually, we will get to a final budget, and then we will have to certify it through 2 public hearings.
Just one public
Or
hearing.
just one public hearing? Okay, in September, and then we will move it forward to Denton. So that's kind of the way the budget's going to work in a nutshell over the next month and a half, I guess.
But just to clarify the public hearings, there's a separate public hearing required to approve the budget, and there's a separate public hearing required for the property tax rate.
Correct.
So those are 2 separate items in the budget as we move the budget through, that there's separate public hearings, separate votes, one on the property tax rate and one on the entire budget.
Do we typically have those meetings in conjunction with town council meetings?
Yes.
Yeah.
That, the public hearing is part of the council meeting, yes.
We've only got 3 meetings.
Yes, and in the past, we've been able to accomplish that, much like the mayor said. If especially after today, it looks like we need to call another workshop, we will call one.
Well, I'm more concerned
Sure.
about the fact that, our last meeting in September is well before the deadline. And so if we try and have that final hearing in that council meeting, we're essentially
No,
truncating
no.
2 weeks of work time.
No, the public hearing is just a requirement. You do not have to approve the tax rate and the budget at the public hearing. Just a public hearing is required.
Right.
Okay.
So if it goes through and we need to call a special meeting at the end of September, we fulfilled the town has fulfilled the public hearing requirement for those 2 things.
Very good, thank you.
Any
Chris?
more logistical
Yeah.
questions? So, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share the, again, it's a quick overview PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is not getting into the nuts and bolts of everything, but I thought it was important, especially with the new council, just to kind of share from a big picture perspective. These are some areas that I want to highlight, and obviously the rest of the time will be spent on more digging into some of the numbers, the contracts, answering questions, and those types of things. But I want to start off, obviously, I mean, last month or month and a half ago, the council went through the process of developing a vision statement and strategic goals. At that time, I said that was kind of at least in my opinion, the official kickoff to the budget, because, again, you'll hear me say this time and time again, the budget, when you peel it back, is really a policy document. So the end result of the budget should be tying into our vision statement and strategic goals. And so I'm always put that at the front of the list, in front of everything related to budget, because that should be the direction as council is making the policy decisions, that they are tying into those the vision statement and strategic goals. So again, I just wanted to thank the council for the work they did on this over the last couple of months. I would like to go over our organizational chart very quickly. I think that'll hopefully help you get a bigger picture of the proposed budget. Obviously, at the top is always the citizens, the governing body being the mayor and town council. just looking under the town administration portion of it, we have a town administrator, and then we currently have, the town consists of 12 full-time staff. On the administration side, the town administrator, the town secretary, and town treasurer. All those positions report to myself, who's the town administrator. The town secretary oversees elections, agendas and minutes, and the entire court system. The town treasurer assists with financials, budget, bank reconciliation, and any other thing I can think of. Our IT services are contracted out, so if you see in white, if a service, that usually means it's contracted. Under the police department, we have 9 full-time employees. Then in Public Works, we have building inspections and permits, engineers, animal controls, and sanitation. Our entire Public Works operation is contracted out, so we do not have full-time employees. I would like to take this opportunity right now to kind of hand it over to the chief. With the recent resignation of our assistant chief, he has come up with a reorganization of the police department that I wanted him to share with council.
Thank you. The purpose of the reorganization was to bring us a little bit more in line with similar-sized agencies. When I came to Double Oak, I was a little bit surprised that we had an assistant chief, but I didn't want to get too tied up in semantics. I tried to look more at the function of the role. With the retirement of Chief Gaines, I saw that as an opportunity to kind of do a top-down reorg and better define the roles of each of the people in the organization. So instead of an assistant chief, we'll have a lieutenant. That is a little bit more consistent with organizations of our size. And one of the primary jobs of the lieutenant will be our accreditation manager. In larger agencies, accreditation manager is a full-time position, especially during the process of seeking accreditation, but even afterwards in maintaining accreditation. For the last agency I worked for, that was a full-time job. Obviously, we can't afford that here, we can't do that, so what we're going to do is we're going to attack accreditation as a team, but you have to designate one person as the point person, and that'll be the lieutenant. So a significant portion of her time will be towards seeking and maintaining our accreditation. The next step down in the org chart is the detective sergeant, and typically those in larger organizations, those are 2 separate functions. You have a sergeant that oversees the patrol division, and you have a detective. There's a lot of variability in the detective workload here in this department. Sometimes they have multiple cases on their desk, sometimes they don't have any that are active. So it doesn't make sense to just have a full-time detective. So that person will have a dual role of managing first-line supervision, things like scheduling, payroll, internal affairs investigations, things like that. So that'll be kind of a dual role. In the patrol division, we have a corporal, and in every agency I've ever had contact with, the patrol, the corporal position is kind of a difficult thing to define because it is not, in its nature, a supervisory position. We view it more as a peer leader. So you try to select somebody with a lot of practical experience that can be kind of a boots-on-the-ground guide for the less experienced officers, somebody that they can show up on a call, and maybe that officer that's handling the call hasn't handled many of that type of call before. It's somebody with a lot of experience, a lot of touches that can say, hey, have you considered this, have you considered that? So we look at it as a peer leader kind of role. Then we have our patrol officers. We currently have 3 reserve officers. Those are unpaid. And then we have a crossing guard that handles the crossing right here at the corner. So that's the vision. We're in the middle of the reorg right now. I did interviews yesterday. I had 1 internal applicant for the lieutenant position. I had 1 internal applicant for the detective sergeant position. I interviewed both of those yesterday. Both of those interviews were successful. I have 3 applicants for the corporal position, and we'll be doing those as an oral board type situation early next week. So we should have everybody in place or identified by the end of next week at the latest, and then I'll work with Chris to get the org chart and the payroll updated to the new positions. Questions?
Yeah, so going from an assistant chief to a lieutenant, do you anticipate a change in total salary?
Yeah, the total reorganization resulted in a small decrease in overall salary for the police department. So that's a positive. Whenever you can get away with a real, you know, and here's the thing in smaller police departments is sometimes you lose people not because they're not happy working there, not because they're not happy with their pay or their benefits. You lose them because they just don't see a lot of opportunity, right? So we try to create opportunity. So my focus on these filling these positions was, let's go internal unless we absolutely cannot go internal. Give folks something to work towards, you know, convey that message that there is opportunity at the Double Oak Police Department, that you're not just stuck as a patrol officer for years and years and years. So that was kind of a major factor in the decisions that I made. I have relationships with folks that would have loved to come in and take this lieutenant position, but I didn't think it was the right thing to do for the organization.
Other questions for Chief? Counsel?
Well, okay, so then that begs the question, so if we're going to essentially promote from within, so one of our currents, I'm assuming Rosie 1 will step into lieutenant role and so forth and so on, that means we're gonna be shy one person at the patrol level, right?
Correct. We have interviews scheduled for next week to fill that patrol position. Now, you know, I think we have either 5 or 6 interviews scheduled. It's entirely possible we go through all of those 5 or 6 people and nobody's a good fit. You know, we're not going to fill the position just to have a body in place. We're going to make sure that they're a good fit for this organization. So we may come out the other end of next week with an identified candidate that we want to hire. We may not. It may take a little bit longer.
All right, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to compliment to Chief Miller on the work that he did. He put a lot of work into this with me constantly pressuring him, well, make sure you're saving some money at the same time so we can be with efficient use of our resources. So he was able to accomplish that, so I just wanted to thank Chief Miller for that. And just so the council is aware, one of the main reasons that we're getting that salary savings is because as you promote people up, the new people in are starting at the lower step. So when we calculated it out, those people who we might have budgeted at like a mid-range step, the person coming in is starting at a lower step. So that's how we were able to show the savings as a result of the reorganization.
Thank you, Chief.
How much was the savings?
It's estimated just under $10,000.
But you won't know for sure until those positions are actually hired.
Exactly.
And then you'll know the
Yeah.
actual salary.
Correct.
Now, I just want to go over it again at a high level in terms of the proposed budget that was presented to you, and it is included in the binder. Sorry. On the revenue side, I am showing projections of a little over $2.8 million, 2.825, broken up primarily half of it is property tax and another 28% is sales tax. This town, those are our top 2 revenue sources, and it's, for most towns, that's usually how it is. But I want to provide just a brief breakdown of how our revenue sources are shown from an overall perspective. And we'll be going into a lot of these more, but again, this is just very high level. On the expenditure side, the expenditures that I have provided you initially is at 2.763, again, with 54% being the police department and another 5% for the fire department. Public safety shows about 60% of our budget going towards police and fire, with the remainder through admin, IT, which is admin and IT are a lot of our contracts, and then our public works department. That just kind of gives you a breakdown. And in my experience in budgeting, it's very, very common for police and fire, especially for those cities that have their own fire departments, a little bit more expensive. It's been my history that police and fire typically cover up to 70, 75% of most cities' budgets because they have they don't have a volunteer fire department, which helps keep the costs down. So, I mean, we're in line with how most cities are averaging out as it relates to the breakdown by department. I would just like to go at some high-level revenue and assumptions. The assumptions that were made for property tax, because again, property tax accounts for a good chunk of our revenue. In the last year when I provided the property tax, I made the assumption that we are keeping the exact same tax rate as of right now. I didn't assume a rate increase, I didn't assume a rate decrease. Okay, what are the numbers based upon if we just use the exact number? When we plug this in, based upon the numbers that are received from the county, and we kind of talked a little bit about it at the last council meeting, last year when I did that, it showed about a $40,000 increase due to increased assessed valuations, fewer exemptions, less people at 65, those types of things. This year, when we plug in the number based upon the assessed valuation, the increase was only $6,000. So I was a little bit surprised with that, but when I checked around, that's what's happening with a lot of cities because, A, more and more people are protesting their valuations than they ever have. Two, at least in this town, our number of people that are 65 plus where their amount they pay is frozen. Plus this year is the first year that the state gave an additional exemption, $140,000 exemption for business equipment. Granted, we don't have a lot of businesses here, but we do have some that people own their businesses in their houses, and I'm sure they took advantage of some of those. So as a result, instead of going into the numbers, I was hoping it would again be about a $30,000, $40,000 increase, keeping our tax rate the same. This year, the way the numbers came out, it was only a $6,000 increase. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. And we can go over property tax in detail later. In terms of sales tax, as I've mentioned to the council in the past, our sales tax has been doing very well this year, especially due to the online sales. I increased the projection by $45,000 over the current year projection. And that does not assume, that assumes that we would basically be bringing in the same amount of sales tax revenue last year than we're bringing in this year. I did not put a big escalator in. We can always do that. Again, at this point in the budget process, I try to keep revenues as conservative as possible because I don't want to go in overestimating our revenues and not being able to achieve them. But that is definitely something we can look at, and if council directs so, increase that projection up a little bit if we want to. But with sales tax, I always like going more conservative at the beginning than saying, okay, we're going to bring in another $40,000 more this year and then come up short at the end of the year.
So when you look at last year compared to this year, and year-to-date, we're how far over previous year?
Oh, I'm projecting us to be about 40 to 45,000.
At this point?
Oh, at this point? I believe we're about $30,000 over what our projection would be at this point. So we're to the good right now.
Okay, so that would say to me, when you say to this point, you're saying through the end of Q3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that would say to me that we're seeing an increase on average of about $10,000 per quarter.
Yeah, a little bit more than that. It's about $6,000 a month more that I'm getting.
Right.
So if we're at 30, I'm saying 45, so it's 5,000 a month. Again, they're estimates. So right now, our sales tax revenue, based upon the projection that we made for current year, we are bringing in about $5,000 to $6,000 on an average. Every month is a little bit different, but on an average, we're bringing in about $5,000 to $6,000 more per month than we budgeted for. And again, a lot of that has to do with the online sales, much like as I have shared in the past. our brick and mortar have basically evened out. When we look at those numbers, we're bringing in the same amount of revenue every month over the past year from our brick and mortar. So, and that,
Okay, I'm simple.
it's
right?
okay.
$5,000 to $6,000 a month would project $60,000 to $72,000 increase.
If we want to make the assumption that for next year, that trend is going to continue, because what I'm putting in for next year, Chris, is right now at the higher rate.
But if
Okay,
we're-
so I'm assuming for next year, we're bringing in that 5,000 to 6,000 each month, okay?
I get it. If we're at 30,000 through 9 months,
Uh-huh,
okay, that's not even a $4,000 a month increase.
correct.
So we're not doing 5,000 to 6,000 a month over.
I said on the average, Chris, okay, I can break down every month for you if.
Well, no,
if
but I
you'd
get
like.
it. I'm averaging, right?
No, I
If we're-
get
If we're
that.
30 over 9,
Okay,
right, that's closer to 3,500, 3,600 a month over on average.
okay,
So all I'm trying to get, all I'm trying to get at is how are we getting to 45?
Okay.
And is that realistic? And, you know,
what I'm projecting for next year is that the increase that we're getting, the additional 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, that we can anticipate that total amount for next year. It's not going to go back down. I'm projecting sales tax for next year to stay flat, not to have that growth over our budget of an additional 40 to 45 on top of what
So
we
you're
currently
You're
got.
adding the current growth, but you're not.
I'm not adding any more.
Additional growth.
Exactly.
And-
That's reasonably conservative.
And typically on revenue projections, my preference at this point is to be conservative in my estimates, rather than, oh, great, we can take this 45 and add on another 45, that we're not going to get there. I'd rather go low on the revenue side, not saying that we can't, in our final numbers, we can't tweak it or whatever to help balance the budget and those types of things, but that is the assumption I'm making with this presentation. Yes.
And I'll just say, generally, we have gone conservative on there because that's something you can't control in the economy. If
Exactly.
it goes into high inflation again, you see it go
Exactly.
down. So I looked at, we could see month to month to month what we got in, and like December comes in February. If you look at February 25, we made $94,603. If you look at February 2026, it was 92. So it doesn't stay the same, and so we always try to be conservative, because we could go, oh, man, we think we could get 10% more, but who knows?
I'm all about conservative forecasting.
Yeah, because otherwise then we'll go
Yep.
over budget rather than coming in with some extra money that we could then put toward the roads or put toward
Yeah,
something.
and that really helped this year, because obviously with the revenue projections that we made for this year, we went conservative, and we got an extra $40,000 that we collected, which can help offset some other things, so.
I like the conservative route that you're going. However, I do think that we'll probably have to tweak that a little bit higher coming up in the next meeting.
No problem. The interest income, again, I'm anticipating a reduction due to the slight rate decrease that we had and the anticipated lower fund balance, and we can talk about that later, but those are just some highlights as it relates to some of the revenue assumptions that I made. In terms of the expenditure assumptions, within the numbers that I provided council, it does include a cost of living increase of 2% for employees. It includes the $10,000 increase in the EMS contract that was recently approved by council, and it also included a increase in our our anticipated election costs, because we have with the high potential of having an election in November for the liquor referendum, along with our regular election that we have in May. So there are costs associated with those elections. Yes.
So I did want to make note to the citizens, on Thursday, we received the signed contract back from Flower Mound on the AMS contract, so all is good.
Thank you. Did you run it over first thing in the morning?
Oh, after I drove it over there the next morning, yes, I was there. But what they had to do is they had to take it through their council. And I think it typically in their world, it usually ends up a consent agenda item. But they did, the town manager did sign it, and sent it back to Chris and I. We can breathe easy.
Well done.
On the public safety side, again, we included the 2% for all employees. Also, again, much as we discussed earlier, I incorporated the new numbers for the new reorganization that was done, which resulted in a slight savings. Also, at the mayor's request, I put in an increased contribution for the Double Oak Volunteer Fire Department, and you can either talk about that now or later.
Yeah, I'd just like to address it now.
Sure.
So if you go back, this goes back even before I took part in my first council meeting. What the town has paid to the Double Oak Volunteer Fire Department has not had a change. Actually, it went down one year. Would that be correct, Billy? It never figured out why it went down, but it's been flat for now probably 10-plus years. And so just like anything else, their costs are going up. I get it. They do an outstanding job with their 4th of July fundraising, the Double Oak Women's Club fundraising and all, but they still have increased costs. And as we continue to have to invest more in our EMS, it is only fair but also right that we also make sure that we're taking care of our Double Oak Volunteer Fire Department. So I had requested a $20,000 increase. It got pushed back to 10. It is also an item that we will discuss here as we go throughout this.
So when I saw it up there, it looked like 135. I was of the impression that we were normally giving 100. So is the bump 35?
No, I'll be happy to explain that
Christopher.
right now. The council, we have an agreement with the Double Oak Fire Department of which we provide them with a contribution of $100,000. In addition to that, the town pays for the insurance cost on all their vehicles. We also cover their workers' comp costs for that. So that's the balance remaining.
Roger that.
But the contribution is a separate line item for $100,000.
And it really is more variable. Obviously, knock on wood, when we don't have any claims on workman's comp, it'll be a little less. If we have workman's comp claim, it'll be a little bit more. So it's always a moving target.
And this year, it looks like it actually went down from previous?
Yeah, you're still in my thunder there.
Oh, sorry.
Councilman. No, that leads to the next three items. Are both on the positive side for expenditures, our workers' comp rates. We just got the numbers actually Wednesday of this week, and our workers' comp rates actually went down by 40%, which is wonderful. When I saw it, I took a second look and called my contact with TML Insurance and said, "Are you double sure that this number is right?" And they did verify that, yes, our workers' comp rates did go down substantially, so that's good news.
Why? I mean, is there something that the fire department's doing, or the police
Yeah.
are doing, or that we're doing that we can
It's
duplicate next year?
a combination of things. We have not had a lot of claims.
Right.
Plus, we use TML Insurance, which is a pooled insurance, which means that we are pooled in with a lot of other organizations throughout the state. So when they're looking at rates, they're looking at the overall pool plus our individual claims. And we have had very, very few workers' comp claims over the last number of years. In the fire department, we did have a few small ones. Couple of their firefighters had some heat exhaustion due to some training, had to be taken to urgent care. We used our workers' comp to cover that. But for the most part, we have not had a whole lot of claims, and plus we benefit by being pooled in with the insurance statewide with TML. And then on the other side, our TMRS rates, that is the rate that the city pays for the retirement portion of all of our employees. Okay, that rate went down, and the details in here, I believe it was 9 point something to 8 point something. A lot of that is based on actuarial data, based upon the age of your employees, how fully funded we are within TMRS. At the part of our audit that is performed by our internal auditor, they will actually go in and provide the detail to make sure to let the council know how well we are, quote unquote, fully funded with TMRS. There are some cities out there that they're behind in their payments to TMRS, so they're not fully funded. So the way for TMRS to get their money back is they have to increase the rate that they charge to the city to get to be fully funded, so when people retire, they have enough people to pay their retirees. We're at the point we are right where we need to be, so obviously they looked at the actuarial studies, and as a result, our rates went down. So that was a good thing. And that just has to do with the fact that we haven't scrimped in our payments. There are some cities that when money gets tight, they reduce the amount of payments or whatever reasons that they have, or they get behind in their payments. We stay up to date and we fully fund them, which means it helps us keeps our costs lower, and we don't get any surprises by huge increases in our TMRS rates that we're charged. So other items, I just throwing in there, the uncertainty of roads and drainage and anticipating spending on them. The other issue that I wanted to address was the employee insurance rates. I know a couple of the other council members, we have met a few months ago regarding that. And on Wednesday also, believe it or not, I also got the numbers from HUB, our employee insurance. And instead of what we thought was going to be a 25 to 30% increase in our rates, the rates actually only went up 2.5%. And the why, Chris, because I knew you're going to ask the why. A lot of it gets to claims, but also when in the preliminary stages, I made sure that the census data that we gave them was accurate and updated. And with the retirement of certain people in the organization that were a little bit older and bringing in younger people, they took a look at our census data and the youth of our workforce with the people that Dan has hired on the police side, bringing in Daisy and things like that. They look at all of that, and then they go and bid it out amongst a whole bunch of different people. And we were able to keep the exact same coverage, exact same premiums, exact same deductibles for only a 2.5% increase. Last year, when I presented this to the council, I had to tell it was a 25% increase. Yes. That's how much it fluctuates. And when I met with Rodney, our rep, earlier this week, he said, well, Chris, you're the fun one, because I'm getting ready to go tell some cities they got a 40% increase because of either additional claims that they've had or just the age, the census, whatever. We had a good year this year as it relates to the health insurance costs. Can't guarantee, I'll get this in the next slide, can't guarantee that every year because with what's going on in the market. And he did provide us some options to look at in the future to help potentially address if the pendulum starts swinging the other way. And my plan is to have him come this fall to talk to the council about different options we can look at in the future that can help us long-term provide options for our employee health. But since the numbers came in so good, I was very, very happy with that. And what we were able to do in this year's budget, in the numbers that I presented to you, was what I call fully fund or fully budget for every employee that is on staff right now I was able to fully budget for 100% of the health costs. Last year, what we did, because since we had such a huge increase, we had a 25% increase in our premiums, I got directed by council, so instead of throwing in 25%, they say, Chris, let's bump it up by 18%, and we'll hope for salary savings, we'll hope for that we can get through this year by not fully funding, knowing that we're going to have some savings throughout the year through vacancies and that sort of thing. It's a common thing that cities do, because very rarely are you fully staffed 100% of the year for all 12 people. Yes.
I'm just going to ask a clarification
Sure.
for some words you said, because I know them, but I think other people may not. When you say fully funded, that does not mean we're paying 100%
Correct.
of the medical
Correct.
fees. That
I'm-
means
I'm
for the
so-
portion that we're responsible for.
It's the portion that the
We're
town
covering
is responsible for,
Okay.
correct.
I just wanted to make sure, because the way you said it, it sounds
Oh,
like.
I'm sorry, I get carried away sometimes. But no, but what we did last year, I just want to make sure that it was clear, as a way to help balance the budget, council directed me to say, okay, instead of a 25% increase, we'll give you enough for 18%. Fortunately, we had some vacancies at the beginning of the year, and we have a couple of employees actually who choose not to use our city insurance because it just makes more sense for them to use their spouse's insurance. So usually by playing the shuffle game and all that, that's basically how we address that line item.
When you're doing the budget, Chris, when you're doing the budget, do you assume that all employees will utilize town insurance?
No,
For both themselves and family, or do you actually pull them ahead of time?
I base it upon how it is right now.
Okay.
As of August.
So if somebody's, so
if they-
whatever the position is, you're assuming that they'll do the same thing next year?
Exactly, with the exception of, much like the chief said, I mean, after his reorg is done, basically, we have a vacancy, we're going to be hiring a police officer. In those, I budget for employee plus spouse. I don't go all the way employee-family, that's kind of the middle-of-the-road projection for what it would cost for the employee spouse/employee children. Of the 12, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if someone's situation changed and they could no longer be on their spouse's insurance, we would be short because now we're going to have to fund them? Because that's a seminal event. They can change insurance if their spouse loses insurance. So if they come to us and say, hey, my spouse no longer has insurance to cover me, I need you to cover me, we don't have the budget for that?
In that particular? I'm sorry. In that particular line item, yes, we would be short. But the other thing, what you're not seeing on the other side, is that we might have somebody a month later quit or leave or something, of which we're going to have we're going to have savings on the employee benefit side on the other side. Now, we can fully fund 100%, even everything at the highest level, but that's just not realistic. Right now, out of the 12 employees, we have one employee that is employee and the entire family. The majority of our employees are either by themselves, just employee only, or employee spouse. Of the 12 employees that we have, I have one one person who has the employee plus family. So if I were to do worst-case budgeting and budget everybody at the highest level, we would have a lot of savings at the end of the year. I mean, we can do that. That would just show a higher budgeted amount on that line item that we couldn't use for other things. So it's kind of, it's taking what we are right now and making it work to provide us the opportunity to move some of those resources to other places.
Are you going to go into detail on the Cobra 50,000?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to go there.
Okay, go ahead.
I
That's
mean,
what-
there's going to be puts and takes on
Yeah.
all line items
Yeah.
throughout the budget. And that's why they call it a budget.
Again, these budgets, both on the revenue side and expenditure side, are projections based upon assumptions that are made. And and again, I'm sharing with you the assumptions that were made for these particular line items. Chris, every city does it different, quite honestly.
Okay, is there an average amount per year, per employee, that we might think of setting aside a buffer in case someone's situation changes? I mean, do we know what an average would be if someone came and said, I've been on my spouse, I now need to add myself here, so we're not pulling that off the balance
Yeah.
sheet?
Isn't that what the GASB 54,
I'm sorry?
the general fund would come in?
Well, it would be,
The GASB 54?
no, that's different.
But that has
that's-
nothing to do with pulling money
No,
out?
nothing
that's
to
a
do.
totally different thing.
Okay,
But
but,
I'm sorry, go
okay,
ahead.
but we have not discussed that yet.
No, we haven't
Okay.
discussed that yet. But to answer your question, Chris, yes, we could do that. We could easily say, okay, this is how much it costs us to address as it is right now. Okay, our employee insurance, like I know, we only have 12 people, so it's pretty easy to know who has what coverage and all that. As a council, if we wanted to say, hey, you know what, in order to address the what if, or to say, hey, just in case somebody changes their plan or something, if we wanted to allocate an additional amount of money in that line item to cover that, that's easy. We increase, we say, okay, this is our cost, plus another $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is, in anticipation of that might happening. We did that last year, in fact, not in employee insurance, but last year we actually created a line item for what I call retirement payouts. Because when people retire from the town, they get paid out up to 80 hours of their vacation time. In the past, we had to, what I call, absorb those costs. There wasn't a line item for that. In last year's budget, we identified a line item for $5,000. So if somebody retired, I have a place to charge that cash out of 80 hours. So it's the same
But
thing.
was that 5,000 a random number, or did you actually do the calculation and say,
I anticipated who might be retiring at that time.
okay,
Because obviously you have to be at age in order to get to retire at TMRS, because I knew that we were having a potential updating.
is it just retirement, or if someone leaves, do we still have to pay out
No,
80 hours?
oh, no, let me back up, Chris. No, you are correct, okay? I misspoke there. If anybody leaves, so what I did, I'm sorry, I had a brain. I take a look at what their total vacation accruals are to try to get a handle. Are these people, have they maxed out on their vacation? Am I going to have to pay out 80 hours? Or, you know what, are these people just routinely carrying 20, 30 hours on the book, so all I'm going to have to do is pay 20 to 30?
With the new software, you should be able to see that easily.
Yeah, well, that's not even a soft,
that
that's
was
not
a
even
big reason
that's
why we
not
did
even a
it.
soft, well, that ties into our payroll software. I have all the accrual information with our payroll software.
And that was that was the challenge before we got Paycom, is
Right.
there were no records being kept of sick days and
Yeah.
vacation days and all of that. It just was kind of in a mush. And when we implemented the Paycom and we got approvals in the system, we were then able to set the system up so everybody had X in their account, think of it that way, and then whenever they were gone or sick or whatever, it just worked against that account. And then ultimately it got to a point where the ideal thing was everybody uses all of their vacation and their sick days in a year, but it doesn't happen. We had sick days, in some instances, sick days that had accumulated over 160 days because the town just kept turning it over and turning it over.
So we have no policy on capping.
No, we have,
No,
We do,
we
it's
didn't have a
80
we
policy.
have all that now.
It's 80 hours. It's
It's
actually
80.
the most that they can get paid out is, they can accrue up to 160, but they can only get
Correct.
paid out for 80.
So it was pretty messy. We got it
Yeah.
cleaned up, and now we have a system that
Yeah.
is easily managed, easily tracked.
Yeah, and the nice part is, well, depends on define nice, but from my perspective, the employees we have now do not have a lot of tenure, so we don't have a lot of employees who have been here a long period of time. So the likelihood of them having a large vacation balance is, since the majority of our employees have only been here less than 2 years, I believe I reduced that line item by about $1,000 because I'm not anticipating having to do a lot of payouts with a large number of hours because we have a younger staff.
Yeah.
Okay, but I was highlighting that line item, Chris, because yes, we could do a similar type of arrangement with our employee insurance and say, hey, if we want to either add to the existing line item or whatever to anticipate, hey, let's say, I'll just use Daisy as the example here. Let's say Daisy gets remarried and now all of a sudden she wants to make it, right now she's on employee and children, and now she wants to make it an employee family. Well, yes, that's going to cost, it's more expensive to have an employee with family than it, yes, those changes can happen. My philosophy is, yeah, that might happen, but there's usually something on the other side that's going to offset it to where we're going to have somebody leave, or maybe for a couple months, I'm not going to have to pay employee insurance for a particular employee. For example, Chief Gaines left, and I'm anticipating having about 3 months worth of employee benefits payments that we were paying Chief Gaines that I'm not having to pay. So it kind of all evens out at the end type of thing. But again, it's totally up to council if they want to create such a line item to address potential changes to employee healthcare costs.
I did want to bring up the fact that we do, within our benefits, we do have 2 fallen officers that we pay for their families. And we will do that until the spouse is remarried and/or in a family situation where the kids would reach 21 years of age. So,
22.
22?
26.
26?
It went up to 26. Yeah, under
Oh, I missed
Obamacare.
that. I missed that memo.
Yeah,
Wow,
26.
okay, 26, holy cow.
Is that a regulatory issue? Or is
Yes.
that just
Yeah,
a-
we're required by state law.
State
No, I
law.
mean, That's the covered
Well, no,
under-
I'm
that's
talking
the
about-
insurance. I'm just saying,
That we cover
That
fallen
benefit.
officers' line of duty. If they're line of duty deaths, Texas has a law that says you will cut, the city where they were employed will cover them.
so the assumption was made that the officers that died of COVID, that was a line of duty?
That is what the
correct.
state, every COVID death for an officer or fire department person was considered line of duty because they could have picked it up in their line of duty.
Yeah, then in the backup, I mean, I did highlight the dollar amount. It's roughly, for those 2 people, it is about a $50,000 expenditure to the town to cover those charges. So I just want to make sure that was clear and open, and so everyone knows. I mean, it's a requirement, but it does cost the town $50,000 for that.
And these 2 officers had young children, so we'll
Correct.
probably have that for about 20 more years.
Yep.
Be carrying at least a child for that long, for that length of time.
Correct.
That stinks. Not the payout, but the young children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have our existing plans, and we do cover it's the, what's called the employee / child coverage is what they get. They do pay for 25% of the family portion, just like any other employee.
Yep.
No issue.
Just want to talk a little bit about more big picture, some future budgetary concerns that are out there. To me, the biggest one that I just wanted to have a discussion amongst council is the uncertainty of the state impact on property tax. Currently, our state government is, this past legislative session, and I'm sure this upcoming legislative session, is looking at putting more limits and controls on what municipalities and school districts can do with their property tax rate. It's something that in the upcoming state session, I know is going to be a big issue where they are looking at making it very, very difficult for local governments and school districts to increase their property tax rate. Right now, they have kind of like what we talked about at the last meeting, we can go up to what's called the voter approval rate, up to a certain amount. I would anticipate that the state reducing, over the course of the years to come, reducing that voter approval rate down significantly, or at least having those discussions, which puts a limit on the town in the long run of how much property tax they can raise without going to a vote of the people.
So we've been attending some mayor's meetings in regards to this. This is future. This is not for this year. This would be, if anything would happen, it would be 27, 28, basically. But our governor is adamant to do his part to remove, reduce, contain any property tax increases by any municipality in the future. I spoke with Mitch Little, he's our state representative, about this a couple weeks back. This all stems from the larger cities kind of not doing what they're supposed to do with their monies and such. All right, well, we're not a large city, we're a small city. We operate on a very thin budget and with a lot of oversight in terms of what we do and how we do it, because there's just not a lot there. But what Governor Abbott would like is to, if he can't abolish property tax altogether, which is really the second step in his process, if you're not aware, the state of Florida has on their ballot in November the removal of all property tax, which means, in that instance, well, how do you fund town government? Well, town government, you basically then you get a stipend from the state. So our $2.8 million revenue that we need would be handed to us by the state. I'm not going to go into the details of that because that's scary to think that if they hand us something, they're also going to want something in return, because that's how big government works. But where we're at now, and with what Governor Abbott is trying to accomplish, and which, by the way, he now has 85 votes on the Senate side, he's going to get this. And what he's asking for is a max 2% tax rate increase. So that's 2% of your operating budget. So it's 2% on your revenue side, 2% on your expense side. All right? Chris just talked about cost of living. It's scary to think about this. More importantly, though, in order to adopt that 2% rate, it has to go to an election and be voted on by 2/3 of the citizens in order to get that 2% rate, or any rate below that. So think about that one. If, you know, we don't know where we're going to land here in a couple weeks, whether we have a potential for an increase or not, or a decrease or whatever. But think about if we had to have a separate election every time we needed some additional money, or we had to raise the taxes in an annual year, and it had to go to 2/3 vote, how do you think that's going to work? 2/3 of the people are going to show up and say, I want to pay more? It's scary. It really is scary. So we are monitoring this in detail. I will probably be going down in April with the Denton County mayors in Denton County to basically, you're lobbying Congress as to why not to do this. And to sit back and think that, well, small towns will become exempt from this. That's not reality in our big-time budget of our state. So just want to throw this out now so you're not surprised. We will be writing, as the sessions kick in next year, we will be monitoring this. I'm set up on an email thing, and I get email reports, and I'm going to take those and basically turn them around and report them back out through either Friday updates, or if it's something really meaningful, I'll do it in a separate. But y'all need to know what we're going to be up against as a town in the future if Governor Abbott would get his way. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Chris.
I'm sorry. So that would be, the new plan would say that the city could not increase their revenue by more than 2% with property taxes.
That is correct. Well, yes.
But other methods would not.
Yeah, other sources, correct.
Okay.
But we're so heavily reliant upon our property taxes.
Right, and when you're looking at permitting and fees, the state also has you can recover costs, you can't make a profit off of them.
Right.
So we're limited there where we can cover all our costs, but we can't then raise revenue off of permitting fees.
After that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this is not scare tactics in any way. This is so disappointing when we get together at our mayor's lunches with Judge Eads. It's all we talk about, is how are we going to drive our small towns in the future if this gets put on us? It's not fun to think about it. And if you look at some of our neighbors right now who have come out into the paper and said that, we're looking at a budget deficit of X and a budget deficit of Y, and they're going to have to go to a voter-approved tax rate, that's scary. Now, today, if you had a voter-approved tax rate election, it's just, 51% or 50.1% in order for it to pass. In the future, you're talking about two-thirds majority.
Roger.
That's a tough hill to climb.
Yes.
So, and we will have this, a little bit more conversation inside of this when we get to the tax rate discussion throughout our workshops and our meetings, because it's something that we've really got to peel back a little bit more deeper than we have in the past because of what could happen in the future.
Yep, thank you. So again, this is something that we just want to make sure as council members, you guys are aware of what's happening from a state perspective and potential impacts to the town. The other uncertainty every year, and I talked about it previously, is just the cost of employee benefits. We got a good number this year, which
Yeah.
very, very thankful for. But the year before, it was a 25-30% increase. There's such volatility in that market. It just, again, I'm just throwing those ideas out there, that things that we will be under consideration for future budgets that have a big ticket. And employee benefit costs, everybody's dealing with that. The good thing is we only have 12 employees. So these cities who have hundreds of employees, it's a huge, huge, huge issue. And finally, the final future budgetary concern, and it's addressed in almost every council meeting also, but I am just highlighting it, is just identifying future funding for street and drainage projects. It's an ongoing concern, right? Historically, this town has utilized either our fund balance, or we were able to use some of the COVID money we got from the federal government a few years ago, but just from a long-term perspective. And again, I know we've already talked about it, but I'm highlighting the fact of just identifying a funding strategy for street and drainage projects.
And-
So, go ahead,
Oh,
please.
I was just going to say, and Chris, I know you haven't had time to jump into your roads committee, but there is a list of all the streets and when something was done to them, and it's just a cycle that you'll work through with this list. I don't know who has it. It's somewhere, but that's something. So the good news is you don't have to every year try and think of something new. You just kind of go in and create your list and go after that. But that's something that, we're still working on this past year's. We'll want to start talking about next year's, because it's all going to come into play as we now start to look at everything in a 3 to 5 year.
I get it. I'm curious, so we did that drainage study, and I've heard all kinds of anecdotal about whether it's of value or not. And I guess what I want to understand is there a pathway, put aside what it costs over time, is there a pathway for the town to solve its drainage problems, or are we just going to live in the muck for the foreseeable future?
Well, so there's no easy answer on that. So the town is responsible for all the cross culverts.
Yeah.
So all the streets, and believe me, there's cross culverts out there that I find when I'm out riding on my e-bike, that it's like, I didn't know there was a cross culvert here, and so I make note of it. In terms of the drainage study also, is the major thing that we were trying to be soft but a little bit hard on was the fact that we really need people to go out and pay attention to their bar ditches, because that water is supposed to run into those ditches and down through the system. Right now, the bar ditch is being filled in, the water's not running off anywhere, so it's pooling, and then it's pooling and moving on to neighbors' yards and so on and so forth. So that's a big push that I think we need to do some more promotion on this next year, is to try and get more activity in that, because that would help a lot. Other than that, there's been a couple of areas that came out of the 2008 drainage study that appeared in this drainage study, somewhere down on, I think it was Brown Trail, Brown Deer, whatever, to where we might have to look at a flume type thing, which was on 2 drainage studies. It never got dealt with. But for the most part, in terms of the drainage challenges we have in our town, it really starts at the homeowner and with the culverts. And if you look underneath your driveway, you're in a new area, right? You're out in Peppermore?
No, I'm on
Or
Plantation.
you're on Plantation, okay. So it really comes down, and we've had some movement. There's somebody up on Cross Timbers who's was crushed, and he came in and had it redone. So I definitely think as we move forward with the drainage, we need to start doing more of a promotional thing, but there's no quick fix and there's no easy answer to the drainage.
You addressed it and went by it very quickly, but the culvert that goes under people's driveways is, along with the bar ditches being a big problem, but that's a secondary problem too, because if
Correct.
those get damaged or crushed, or they get filled up with dirt, and it's not the responsibility of the town, it's the responsibility of the homeowner.
So one other thing I'm going to add is, so we've talked, and I've talked to Chris about this, that we need a strategic, long-term plan for this town.
Right.
And that would fit into that, where we
Correct.
say, and we start saying, this is where we want to go in the future, so that we can start getting the grants. We'll know how much.
Right.
And we can start getting the grants, we can start getting the other things. Part of our thing that we're waiting on, Kings Road, honestly, because you start at the bottom. This is what I've learned about drainage since I've been on, because I knew nothing about drainage before I got on this council. You have to start at the bottom and fix those, because if you start at the top, that just sends more to the bottom.
Sure.
Right.
Kings Road is our bottom. Down there where it hits Bridlewood off Lusk Lane is where it flows out down there. And so we have to start with that. So the sooner we can kind of get ourselves on that Kings Road project, Trip 22, I think it's Trip 22 is what it's
Trip
called.
2022, yeah.
The sooner we can get that cleared up, where then we can start moving up also. If that's what I've been told, that's what the engineers have told us before too. And so part of it is, everybody needs to clean out their culverts and get those flowing right. Clean out trees. A lot of people have let trees grow into them. As I walk in the mornings, I see all that. They've filled them with rock. They've done different things because they're trying to stop it from eroding. But in doing that, they're then filling up their bar ditches, and they're making them not work as they were supposed to. So we need to get that done. But we need a long-range plan for this town. We need to have a strategic plan for this town of where we want to go. We've been putting out fires rather than that, trying to get budgets, trying to get the software, trying to get all these infrastructure things done. I think we're close, I hope, to a point where we can do that, because that's one of the things I wanted to do the first year I came in, and too many fires to put out to get that done. Now that we have Chris, I think we're on our way to getting where we can start doing that.
But when people start asking about their bar ditches, they have no idea what that means. They don't know, does that mean I come down and then go down so many feet, or do I cover my, out, do I go based on my bar ditch? And then, for me, my house, I get everything from the south side comes to my house. And so, once it goes through my driveway, it just starts piling up. And I wasn't in Double Oak for a month, and one of my neighbors said, you have to keep that last part clean, or you're going to create problems for us. Well, it's a long ways up a hill for me to create problems for some people, but it is a constant fight to keep that soot from piling up and then stopping and blocking up mine, which then blocks up my neighbor, and then on and on and on. So, and that's the education we have to get to, is the idea that bar ditches are probably the number one thing that people need to be aware of. Otherwise, they're flooding their neighbors, and they're flooding their one. And to comment on what Pat said, we as a drainage committee looked at a house that we were trying to solve their problem for. And in the process, again, it moves downstream. Everybody that was being flooded upstream from that person, the cause was the next house down, who did some work in their backyard, who didn't have an engineer do it, and now they got their yard perfect, but nobody behind them does.
Right.
nobody upstream. And that's the issue. It's always downstream. If you don't work from Kings Road up, you're never going to get it solved. And just along with the drainage study, and I won't remember the number exactly, Patrick, but it's like $8 million to do that whole drain study, or $15 million?
It was 15.
Yeah, $15 million to do that whole drain study. There's, you know,
Well, it would be more now because that's been over a
right,
year.
right.
And real quick on Kings Road, because, I'd love to open up all kinds of cans of worms here in the town. The reality of Kings Road is that it is been included in the TRIP 2022 budget for Denton County. Denton County's getting money from the state. Denton County's going to contribute money from the state and from them in order to assist us in possibly replacing Kings Road. No designs, no nothing, no even really discussions yet. But we used the bond program for 2008 for Simmons Road. Simmons Road is a pretty nice road. Regardless of the traffic, it's a nice road. Waketon was a part of that 2008 TRIP project. It didn't get completed until '22. So these things take time. I have had a conversation with Judge Eads about possibly taking a look at, when I say take a look, it means to start having a discussion with engineers and such about the possibility for Kings Road. Right now, we are in limbo with our county commissioner because there will be a new county commissioner, Precinct 4, that will be elected into office in November. As soon as they are elected into office in November, because that's where we have to start. So even though I've had conversations with Judge Eads, and Judge Eads has a special heart for Double Oak, the reality is I have to start at Precinct 4 and then we'll work our way up. And so in order to try and see if we could move this up, and keep in mind, nothing's been designed, nothing's been discussed, we will get the citizens involved heavily. Engineers are telling me that they can design that road to reduce the speed and to make it more calming, but yet if you've driven Kings Road, you know how bad it is, but you also know it's going to impact the most homeowners in our town. And so that's going to be a slow walk of a project, but to start having the discussions now with the new county commissioner are going to benefit us later when it's time to do something. Otherwise, we're going to be 10 or 12 years down the road. The other thing is that with the way things are going in our state, there's no guarantee that that big bond program will continue to be funded by the state. Right now, it was estimated when we had to agree to an amount, $250,000. You'll see it in our fund balance, or our fund discussion. So we would get Kings Road paid for by paying $250,000. We paid $100,000 for Waketon. We didn't pay that much for Simmons. That's a good deal because when we put in for the TRIP 2022 plan, it was estimated that Kings Road would be $5 million. When I've had conversations since then, it's up to $9 million to replace Kings Road. By the time they do it, it'll probably be worth 10 or 11 or 12. We don't have that money. And the scary part is it's breaking down and we're going to need to use some of our road mill and overlay money to keep it operational in the meantime. That's the scary part. So I know we went a little bit deeper, but it will come into play in the fund. And I do like to say that being in that bond project is way better than not. We have a neighboring town that chose not. And then when they went and asked for some additional help from the county, they said no. So, Chris?
Leads right into the next slide and into this where I'm talking about fund balance and GASB 54. Just wanted to kind of go over where we are on that at the start of the fiscal year 25-26, the current fiscal year. We started with a operating fund balance of $2.5 million. Through the current GASB 54 resolution, they committed 1.2 of that for streets, drainage, county road bond project that we just talked about, some technology projects, general contingencies. That's basically identified monies to be spent out of our fund balance. To date, of that $1.2 million, council has approved $141,000 of that 1.2. Some of that has been spent, some of that is going to be spent. Those were approvals that were made by either this council or the previous council. What is left over then is the 1.276, which is basically represents 46% of our operational needs, which is kind of our rainy day fund. Our current GASB 54 requires us to keep anywhere from 4 to 6 months in reserve for what I call the rainy day fund. I've already had preliminary discussions and brought up this issue with the Budget Committee already. We'll be having more discussions because I'd like to get the Budget Committee's input and recommendations from a policy perspective that they can bring back to this council as to what I call the rainy day fund portion of our fund balance. Typically, most cities will set aside anywhere from 3 to 4 months. Our current policy says 4 to 6 months. But it's something that, again, will be discussed at upcoming Budget Committee meetings and presented back to this council with the recommendation.
We also had it on the agenda for a town council meeting a couple meetings back, and we tabled or postponed it, however, whatever the lingo is, so we could get some more information on that.
Correct.
And see if maybe we could alter some of the line items on that to different areas, not including the Trip 22 monies. Of course, that would stay and remain. So I assume we'll learn more and see if council agrees on how it's divvied up and all
Yep.
that.
And to me, and I have said this before, this is my opinion, this is a major part of the budget process.
Yes.
What we're doing with our fund balance. So I'm looking forward to working with the committee starting next week to get some good discussions on that so they can make recommendations to council. This does not have to be done specifically as part of the budget process. I just feel it's important, though, that it needs to be part of the discussion process, part of the budget process. But it's not like we have to have an answer to this by the end of September.
Correct. I
Like-
think it
like we do with the
expires.
budget. But it's important.
It does expire.
Yeah,
I mean, we do have to approve.
right.
it, yes.
But different cities do
But
it.
it's not the budget.
Different cities do it at different times. Some do it early on, some wait until after the budget is adopted, some do it midway. But you're going to keep hearing me stress, this is an important policy decision that council will be making as to what we are doing with our fund balance for the upcoming
Obviously, because it
year.
was on the agenda a couple
Yep.
meetings back.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came out in one of the articles with one of our neighboring towns was that they were utilizing some of their fund balance in order to run their town. And when the fund balance runs out and you're not able to run the town through your budget, you basically are in a situation where you've got to go get a voter-approved tax rate.
Right.
So that has always been in my mind as the mayor. It's been in our conversations since Chris was hired. This isn't about any one particular year.
Right.
This is about taking a look at it multiple years, and, if we were to do, we basically, if you just did the math on drainage and streets at 650, in 3 years, we won't have a fund balance.
And where would I find, where was the expenses? I mean, the $141,000, I assume it came from like the police, not the police, but the shield over the police cars, things like that. Is there somewhere we track that?
Yes, that gets tracked as what's called a special revenue fund. Those
So
don't
it's
go
just
with,
everything
those,
is under one item?
no, we have about, and this will be for a later budget
Oh,
discussion
okay.
item. What we're talking about now is our operating fund. We also have what are called special revenue funds for like capital outlay funds, some of our police monies that we get that need to be tracked separately from our operational account. One of the governmental fund accounting strategies that I'm doing is not to include major one-time operational cost into our ongoing operational budget.
Right.
Those should be budgeted in a separate special revenue fund called a streets project or a capital outlay fund, or that's where we are keeping our equipment replacement fund that we're setting money aside for our police vehicles. Those are all called special revenue funds, and I'll be bringing that to council probably at the next meeting.
Yeah, because I don't, yes.
You're not going to see those expenditures as part of your operational budget expenditures. Those are expenditures that have been placed out of our special revenue
Correct,
funds.
but I still see it coming out of this fund.
It comes out of your general fund
Yes.
balance, yes.
Yes, okay. We'll discuss it later. Sounds good.
Well, then why wouldn't we see it on here now?
Yeah.
Why is it not, I mean, this is, we're looking at what we were thinking we may need to pull out of the general fund, but I mean.
We're not pulling this out of the general fund, Chris, okay? Let's be clear. This is the amount of money that is not in our general fund operating account. This is money that is set aside within our fund balance, outside of our operating account.
Right.
Right.
For capital expenditures.
For those 6 items plus our rainy day fund, yes.
So, but.
What is that
For
money
example,
doing for
we're
us now?
anticipating having to spend $75,000 on new radios for the police. Why would that not be up here?
Well, it's part of our.
We haven't,
That's not
using that
confirmed
example,
yet.
Chris, we have not gone to council and had a council discussion yet as it relates to police radios.
Right.
Okay, we've identified, let's just use town hall technology, for example. Okay, that is to take care of needed hardware throughout the year. We know over the course of a year how much of our hardware is going to need to be replaced, or if things come up and we need additional money for technology, what happens, I would bring that to council for discussion. Council would say,
I see.
yes, we want it, and then what happens, Chris, is theoretically, the money gets transferred out of the fund balance into a special revenue fund, so we can track it separately.
So
But what is it?
these have all been talked about in previous councils.
Correct.
The
That
radios-
list.
The radios have not been discussed.
That is correct.
Correct.
And those are just the amounts that the previous council said we're going to set aside, the amounts you're seeing here. And of that, those that were set aside by the previous council, only 141,470
Have actually
has
been spent.
actually been
Correct.
spent.
Got it.
So the
But it
rest has
actually
not
should
been
be
spent
none.
at all.
Not,
But we've had some towns-
Panel, be careful,
But
okay?
it actually should be nothing.
Not spent, approved.
Approved.
Some of that still needs to be spent.
So
Sorry.
Chief, how far out are we from having to make a decision about the radios?
So the reality is that the current radios that we have, the portable radios, are beyond end of life. They're no longer supported by Motorola. That is not necessarily the drop dead, because in general, radios last quite a while. They're very rugged, they're very, very dependable. We have quotes in place to replace either just our portable radios, or our portable radios and our in-car radios, or as a bundle, our portable radios, our in-car radios, and our body cameras.
Can it be piecemeal? So let's say, to your point, they have a long shelf life and one dies. Can we replace that one, or by replacing that one, will it no longer interface with the rest?
Now, they have to be all updated at the same time to maintain operational functionality with the county's radio system, which is who we contract
So
with for
is the
communications.
plan to wait until one dies, or?
No, we, like I said, we have the quotes in place. We just need to have the discussions, and my opinion right now at this point in time is we don't look at the body cameras. I don't think we need to update our body cameras at this point in time. And if we did, I doubt I would go with Motorola anyway. So it's probably going to be just the portable radios at a $70-ish thousand cost.
Yeah, that's a conversation.
So is there plans to put that on the agenda anytime soon?
Yes, that would be part of the discussion that we're going to be having for future capital equipment
So in
purchases.
the next 2 meetings?
Uh-huh,
Roger that.
yeah.
Well, that's anticipated to be discussed in the new technology committee. So will they'll, with
Take it
their
deeper.
expertise, working with Chief Miller and Chris, I hope to that will, the council will get feedback with ideas, options, alternatives, whatever there may be. That's one of the purposes of
Yep.
that committee.
Yes. So, and that leads me to my last slide, and we can start talking nuts and bolts of the budget a little bit. I put together, it's important that we take a look at our budget from a 3 to 5 year window, so we're not just looking at current year. What these costs represent, what these lines represent is the red line in the middle. That's our projected expenditure costs based upon current service level for the next 5 years. It includes a salary cost of living increase of 3% per employee. It includes a medical insurance increase.
Can you point out which line item you're looking at?
Looking at the red line item is expenses. Is the-
Expenditure side, so right in the middle.
Right in the
Okay.
middle. The assumptions include a 3% cost of living. It also includes employee insurance going up 10% per year, and then also incorporating any current contracts that are in place. For example, the council just approved the EMS contract, which escalates over the next 3 years. Those are included. And I believe I just put in a 3% CPI increase for all the other contracts. Again, these are general projections showing with basic assumptions, just to give us a 5-year look at where we are looking with our expenditures. The bottom blue line is our current revenue stream, based upon projections as is.
Which is the top line of the box.
No, that's the bottom line. The blue line at the bottom is given our existing revenue, as we discussed. And again, this is being much like we discussed it with the revenues. I'm conservative in my projections. This only includes a real life 1% increase in property tax, assuming that the trend is going to continue. If we keep our property tax the same, the rate isn't going to go up as high. It includes just a minimal 1 to 2% increase in our sales tax each year. Again, with the assumption, the revenue assumption, being conservative, but it paints the picture, much like was shared 3, 4, 5 months ago when we had McAdams come in and do their presentation, that over a long period of time, we are going to be in a shortfall that's not going to be manageable. That's why some of our neighboring towns are going through the budget challenges that they're going through, because they had this information and they knew that in years 3, 4, 5 coming down the pike, it was going to get tough. Well, they're in that 3 or 5 year down the road now. That's why they're having some serious issues. I don't want to be in that area if need be. Then the final line, which is the yellow line, which goes up to the top, that is making the assumption, and this is purely an assumption, that the development at 407 and Simmons gets approved, and we start bringing in the additional sales tax and property tax that development would bring in. If you look at the numbers at the bottom, with the one that's in yellow, the money would start coming in a little bit, primarily with property tax, starting in 27, 28, and basically by year 30, 31, the town would be bringing in just under $500,000 a year in anticipated additional property tax and sales tax.
I totally understand this chart, but it takes me right back, and I don't want to start a debate or anything on this, but it takes me right back to the vision statement that we have for Double Oak, and I just want to say it: preserving Double Oak's natural beauty, rural character, and small-town quality of life for generations to come. And I understand this graph, and I know it's not, it's just assumptions, but I just want to make sure that we all understand the vision statement going forward with this in mind.
Chris?
How did you, how did you come to 500,000 a year? I mean, is that the model that McAdams built?
It was a combination. It was partly the model that McAdams did based upon industry standards. I also received information from the contract we have with a company called ZACTAC that tracks our sales tax numbers, and said, hey, if we have these types of businesses within our city limits, and they're new, what is the average sales tax that the town would bring in? Without letting them know what McAdams gave me, so I want a second opinion on how much does just throwing it out, how much does a 50,000 square foot grocery store bring you? How much does a fast food, and your average fast food place bring you? How much does a coffee shop bring? Making certain assumptions. How much does a restaurant bring you? Again, it's all based on assumptions, Chris, of what will be brought in. The information that they provided me in terms of what the estimated property tax was similar to the numbers that when McAdams did the same thing on their independent verification, the numbers came out similar. On the property tax side, it is purely based upon the assessed valuation, based upon the projected building cost, the property, not the land cost, but the building cost of how much they're going to be building in that particular property. So, I mean, two separate things. Again, it's both property tax that we'd get and sales tax.
Have you
Again, and
separated
those
that?
numbers are from
Have you
two different.
separated those two taxes, property taxes from
Yes, sir.
sales tax?
Yes, sir.
So on this line, if
They're
it was...
combined, yes.
Well, I only see one line.
Right, the
Development.
line is a combination of, what I'm saying is the numbers that I'm showing you is a combination of.
I know, but do you have, what is the separation between increase in property tax as opposed to
My-
which is somewhat more likely than a sales tax projection, which is,
Yeah.
could be vague.
Yeah,
So-
my initial property tax projection was right in the area of $100,000 of additional property tax.
And that is based upon the assessed value of the
And the
property.
current buildings that they are projecting to build.
Now-
That's not just the land,
Yeah.
that includes the structures and the value of those structures that ties into the whole assessed valuation of the facility.
Have we
of the
done a
plot.
review? What would be if that property changes ownership? That's immediate, right there, that's an immediate bump on our
Yes.
property taxes. To what amount?
It would depend on what the,
Sale price was.
well, yes, but also what the zoning change would be.
Well, it wouldn't be our zoning change.
It'd be on their side, and that's why if you look at the numbers for 27, 28, I put in a rough number, about $28,000, and that would be, at least in my estimation, some of the additional new property tax that we'd be getting. Property tax would be increasing over the period of time, because, yes, the land value would go up, and also it wouldn't be an ag designation anymore, so we'd get a little bit more year one, but as they start building structures and as the building improvements go up, which increases your assessed valuation, over time, your property tax will be going up as well. But according to this projection, that initial property tax would start coming in fiscal years 27, 28. And then in 28, 29 is when we'd start seeing both additional property tax and a little bit of sales tax as they as things kind of get going. It's a gradual increase over time to get the total amount.
I understand that. I just wanted to clarify that property, most of that 23 acres is under an ag exemption with Denton County. So they're paying property taxes on a $200,000 value as opposed to $7 or $8 million value.
You are
Now,
correct.
once the development starts and buildings go in and the county assesses the value of those buildings at multiple millions of dollars, of course, if it's homes, it's going to be assessed for, based upon the value of the homes. If it's commercial property, whether it's retail or office, again, it's going to be assessed based upon that. The big difference that we recognize is that commercial non-retail typically does not generate sales tax, whereas commercial retail does.
Correct.
But we have not done, other than the estimated $100,000, we haven't done a non-retail development forecast, assuming what or forecasting what the property taxes would be
Well, the
without
property
retail.
tax doesn't care if it's retail or not.
Right.
It's based on the valuation of the building and the land,
Right.
on the
We-
property tax side.
We have done one on if, you probably get about 14 to 16 houses on that property. We have done the projections on that.
Okay.
And that was part of the presentation
Correct.
that was done by McAdams. They did a residential-only option for projected property tax if that development was residential only. I would like to highlight too, just from a pure property tax perspective, if you look at our property tax roll and the data that I gave you, kind of gave the top 20 of assessed valuations within our town, that is what is provided to me by the county. The majority of those are our commercial developments because commercial properties are assessed at a higher value than residential.
We did have that presentation by James Herring a couple weeks, our last meeting, I think, where it's nice to know we do have options still that can combine maybe the commercial, but again, I don't want to start a debate on that because I know we're in a budget meeting. Commercial
And
and
this
residential.
assumption, I just
Yeah.
felt it was important for council to see a five-year plan with different assumptions. Since we have received an application by a developer, these are the revenue assumptions over the next 5 years based upon if that project were to be approved or
Why
not.
haven't we heard anything else about the development in a while?
We are still waiting to get the final information from them as it relates to the new drainage the new drainage plans and all that they provided us. We are still waiting on
Yeah,
that.
we check in with them. They also,
okay.
there were some additional requests from the group that they were meeting with that they're
Okay.
working on as well.
And
Right.
they're also working with Lantana Water, they're
Yeah.
cleaning, making
I
sure
know there's a lot of
that-
things that we never
Yeah,
heard about.
There's a
in the
lot
past.
of things
Okay.
that happen behind the scenes with that. With that ends my PowerPoint overview of it, Patrick. I don't know if you want to have public comments now, or if we want to start going through the workbook. I'll leave it up to you how you want to do it.
Well, so Deb, in terms of, because you wrote on here various 27 expenses. So, and I can call you up whenever. We typically will either talk about revenue first or expenditures first. So I'd rather insert you in where it matters versus just having you get up at the beginning of something. So would you do me a favor as we start to have the discussion, or if you want to go right now, you can?
Maybe just because you guys have already addressed some of the points that I had.
Okay, well then, come on, go ahead and, yeah, I want to be cognizant of
Patrick?
it being relevant.
Yeah, no,
Patrick,
with
in
the-
addition, I know Deborah signed up, and she is the chairman of the Budget Committee, but I've seen some hands go up. I'd like to offer the opportunity for anybody who had questions
So-
to maybe speak now.
We did that at the beginning.
Yeah, but we've had questions of people apparently having questions or comments
So-
since then.
Okay, so as a facilitator, I will deal with those. I've got a person who signed up, and I've got to acknowledge and give her the floor first.
So Deborah Corder, 685 Simmons Road. Like I said, you guys have already touched on some of the topics that I had notes on. I think going back to the revenue projections here, one of the questions, have we factored in the Sunset Vista homes on 250 Simmons? Okay, so the answer is yes. Chris is nodding his head. So that was just one of the questions. The rest of mine are related to expenses. PD, so our police department has step increases, and I've seen the chart. So can you explain to us how that works? Is it automatic based on their, their title, that each year they go to the next step? Is it merit-based or is it automatic?
So it's a little bit of both, and let me explain that to you. The step plans have become pretty much the default standard, certainly in the Metroplex and probably Texas-wide. There's a few holdouts that are not on step plans. I did, as part of the operating budget book, there's a salary study that we just completed of 24 area agencies, and the vast majority of those are on a step plan. The way a step plan works is it is tenure-based. But by default, there is sort of a merit component to that as well, in that if you're not performing up to the standard, you're not going to be here next year to get your next increase, right? So that's kind of, in a way, built into it. But that really is a strategic recruiting and retention tool. Most officers in the Metroplex are used to and comfortable with a step plan as opposed to a strictly merit-based plan or what they call a range plan. Before I came here, we had a merit-based plan, and to be honest with you, the administration of that plan, I think in some cases, was a little bit inconsistent. Our most tenured officer here was our lowest paid officer. So if that officer hasn't been performing up to a standard, what correction, what training, what have we done to try to get them up to that standard? So officers like the knowledge that in year 5, I'll be making this much, in year 10, I'll be making this much. And I think any agency that's outside of that step plan model is at a recruiting and a retention disadvantage.
So Chief, so the step plan is in place of a cost of living, or is in addition to?
In addition to.
Roger that, okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Roads and drainage. So I'm looking at the budget for '26. Between those two line items, we have a budget of $108,000. But our forecasted spend is only $50,000. And we've been talking about this for a while. We have a GASB 54 fund for roads and drainage. So something seems out of whack. There's a disconnect here that we're not spending the funds. It's even in the operating budget. Just a comment.
And that, I think. Do you want to address that, or I can? So that is, they're going out to bid right now, and this is later than we normally do it, I will say. We had gotten to a schedule where we were doing it earlier, because right now they couldn't lay the roads because it's too hot. I've learned a lot about roads, too. This is crazy, what you're going to start learning about all this. So that is out with our engineers who are putting together the bid packages right now, so that money is expected to be, I'm not going to say spent, I'm going to say allocated. Is allocated an okay word to call it? By the council.
Yes.
That we're going to spend that and do that contract when we get that.
So come back. So there's a window of time we can't lay the roads because it's too hot.
Oh, correct.
There's a window of time where it's not practical to lay the roads because of cold or ice or too much rain. So how do we do this?
So normally it happens in the fall or early spring before it starts raining. So we have a time period. So when we get the bids, the contractor will also tell us what their schedule, because it's our other problem. And we're small.
Right.
So what we learned is the biggest cost in roads is for them to transport the machinery here. So if we don't have enough roads, we're paying the same amount for them to transport the machinery if we do one road or if we do 5 roads. And so, or about, would you say that's true, Chris? That's what, in looking at things, that's what I've surmised.
Yes.
Okay, so we tried to get enough roads now to make it a bigger thing. So sometimes we're doing them every other year to put them all together. That's another one of our strategies, so that we get a lower cost overall for them and get the most roads done. So this, it's part strategy, part other things. One of the other things Chris is looking into, and I don't think you've been able to do it yet, is trying to get the other towns that are near us, since it's a cost of getting the equipment here, if other towns like, let's say Bartonville or Copper Canyon are also having road repairs, can we get together and do that and have the equipment delivered and share the cost of that and then pay for the actual paving of our own roads? He's looking to that as another potential strategy to get a bigger package. We also have problems getting people that will do it for us because we're small. If you've ever driven down 377 up in Pilot Point, Aubrey and all that, they just repaved the whole 377. At the same time we were bidding last time, people would not bid for us because they could get a lot of money doing that one. They weren't going to get a lot of money doing us. So that's another problem we have with getting a good price.
Yeah, I do though like to highlight from a purely budget perspective what Deb brought up, because yes, going back to the fund balance, we have identified the 350,000 and the 300,000. Those, in my opinion, are for the large mill and overlay projects, what we're working on. The money that's identified in the operating account goes to pay for what I call the smaller projects, the ones that you don't have to go out for a competitive bid, that we have. For example, we had the issue that we had a potential sinkhole that we had to fix on one of our streets. That's where the money is identified for some of those smaller projects that need to get done, that aren't the big $100,000 projects. We have money set aside for those, for both streets and drainage. On the drainage side, and I'm working with Mike and the Drainage Committee, we have a resident who wants to do a lot of the work himself on assisting out by Kings. Well, it turns out that the money for that if council approves it, it's not a big ticket dollar amount, but it's something that would be paid for a drainage improvement that we could utilize the 50 some odd $1,000 that is identified for some of the smaller drainage repairs, and it's within our operational budget. So
It's
kind of a
probably in here
combination of the two.
somewhere, but is there a yearly spend? Have we spent anything in a couple years, or where would that be? Where would I find that?
I will provide that to you, and I
Okay.
believe that the Budget Committee has asked me for that information
We have.
as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know.
That's why I chuckled when
There we
you
go.
asked.
Well, and part of the reason I'm up here is to educate the public too, right? Just to make them aware too.
Right.
Because if I look back 5 or 6 years, we had over 200,000 a year budgeted for roads, okay? We're at 50 now, so just makes you wonder, right? So based on what I'm hearing, am I assuming correctly that if we get the repairs that we've got out for bid now, that cost will actually fall into 27, timing-wise? Because we're already in August.
No, if you're talking about the mill and overlay
Yeah.
project, again, that, I would not include that in our operational budget
Correct.
anyway. That would be a special project fund, and it wouldn't really impact our operational budget. Because again, I'm trying to separate out big projects and not have them part of our general operating.
I know you are, but the citizens need to know where the cash is going to, so.
the cash should be
The
going-
visibility needs to be there,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So, I looked at the salary increase percentage for the town administration, 5.8%. Seems very high. We have 3 employees, one just started, so I'm having a hard time understanding that percentage increase, and I'm just asking for the assumption, the logic.
Those numbers are just based on existing salaries as they are right now.
Yes, but we're talking an increase of almost 6%. Is that what you're recommending for the town administration?
Yes, then that assumes a 2% increase over what the current salaries are.
How?
So it's 2% for Laura, 2% for Daisy, 2% for Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, since the budget, let me just back up. Since the budget,
How percentages work.
since the budget was adopted, salaries have changed. So you can remember when the budget gets adopted at the beginning of last fiscal year, it was assumed that this is what everybody's salaries are. Since that time, salaries have changed. Now that this projection is based upon what everybody's current salary is.
So our actual salaries were higher than budgeted in '26?
Correct.
Is what he's saying?
Overall, yes.
So we're basing the increase of 5.8% on last year's budget, but in reality, it's a 2% increase over the actual salaries.
That is
That
correct.
are currently
correct.
being paid.
Right.
Okay. General engineering, so we had some conversations, Dan and I, about the engineering costs. The budget is increasing another 10,000, and I'm just curious about that since we're really working. I know the ordinance committee is looking at how we can recoup the professional fees, so just curious why it's going up.
That was it. I'm anticipating some additional engineering costs should the development be approved. There'll be some, again, purely looking on the expenditure side, there would be some additional engineering costs with that. Then on the revenue side, going back to the whole cost recovery issue, our revenues then would potentially go up as well.
Would offset, are you
Yes.
saying?
Uh-huh.
So it's just how you're recognizing it?
Exactly.
Okay. It's not, you're not showing the expense of one line item and then offsetting it with the chargebacks. You're showing that revenue in a different bucket.
Exactly, and that's
Okay.
what, with governmental fund accounting is, when you bring in revenue, you want to show it as revenue. You don't do it as a credit to your expenditures.
Can you repeat what you said about the $10,000 that might happen if the shopping
Well, I
center
mean,
is approved?
if the development gets approved, I mean, again, this budget is based on assumptions. You have to make certain, there would be, I'm anticipating there's going to be some additional engineering costs on the expenditure side to assist with the site plan process and the building process of that development, just like any other development.
For the town?
And then,
Yeah.
and then what you're saying
Why?
is, on the revenue side, there will be offsets to that.
Yeah, based upon we are able to charge then on the revenue side to get reimbursed back from the developer those engineering costs, so then you would see a subsequent increase on the revenue side.
But that, as you said, that's potential. Right now,
Right.
it's unclear whether we have a true recovery opportunity.
That's correct.
Engineering
And-
caused opportunity.
Yes, and it's being reviewed and addressed right now through the ordinance committee to get that cleaned up, yes.
Okay, so I know in the workshops, going back to this past spring on the development, it was always promoted that all of our engineering expenses would be recovered. Is that
No,
potentially?
I've never said all of our
I didn't say you
engineering-
said it. I said it was promoted that our engineering expenses of the town would be recovered.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
I think that there is a misconception. That was not for the engineering, that was for the McAdams part that was doing the development pieces of it, not the engineering pieces.
As it-
Those were
As it
covered.
relates to the planning function, yes.
Correct, the planning function was the one that was covered,
Why
correct?
wouldn't we pay- oh.
but that's not the engineering part. Those people weren't doing the engineering, they were doing the planning aspects.
Right, but what
So far-
engineering would we not get back? Right, don't we pass all our engineering costs on?
Historically, this town has not done that, sir.
But
We need to, yes.
We found out that in the ordinances, it's not very clear if referenced at all. So that's why, after we met with Chris earlier this week, he pushed it to the ordinance committee to come up with a solution, hopefully sooner than later.
So I'll give an example.
Go ahead.
Can I give an example that
Please.
we've talked about? And that is when a new house is built. So this is a new house currently. A new house is built. Before, the town did not get engineering involved that much in drainage for any house, new house that was built. Now that we have the study back, we know different places, we need to start looking a little bit clearer at what the plans are for their drainage when they're going to build a new house or going to add on to an existing house. And so now we're getting engineers involved in that. Currently, we don't pass that on to the homeowner, those engineering costs, the people that are building. That's where we need to clear things up, because that's what I think our biggest things are right now, currently. No development going on, but just right now, what's pushing those up? So that's what the ordinance committee is going to be looking at, is how do we cost recover those, knowing that each individual plat is going to have different engineering costs associated with it. Because yours may not have, this one may not need a bunch, this one may need a ton. So the ordinance committee will be taking that up at the next meeting.
So I'm assuming they'll also be looking at commercial, so not just residential.
Absolutely, they'll be
Okay.
looking at all of it, but right now, what we're currently experiencing is more residential, since they are the ones building right now.
Okay.
And we're
this-
also going to utilize the engineering work that's done, that's passed on to the end user, then that will be the basis for the town's final sign-off
Yes.
on whether it's approved or not approved.
Right, the
And we're gonna-
reimbursement.
We're going to do it the way it should be done, is if they didn't put the ditch in right, they need to fix it, sort of thing. So there'll be oversight that'll come from this as well.
Okay. Thanks.
I know in Bartonville, they actually have a rule that if the developer has not, if all the costs are not recovered, then it doesn't even go to P and Z, if I understood their Bartonville's plan. So they have an incentive program to encourage developers to pay any invoiced charges.
Yeah, we just haven't done it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. We were vague, and we just didn't do it.
Yeah, and so the whole issue of cost recovery, I'm very glad it's being brought open and discussed and addressed, and ordinance committee is already looking at it. And another example of an engineering cost that is out there, and again, council doesn't have to do it if they don't want it, but anytime somebody requests a plat, or they want a replat, or they want to, there's engineering work tied into every replat application that we get. Some cities, in addition to the replat fee, also pay for any engineering expenses as it relates to the requested replat. So there's a lot of different, it's not just development, there's other things too that we can get reimbursed back from that I want to have the ordinance committee take a look at to give us a complete big overview picture of the whole cost recovery issue, especially as it relates to engineering.
Okay. The last thing I have is, and this is an unpleasant topic, it's medical insurance. Having worked in corporate America, I went through this for years. Every year, the corporation's costs went up and up and up. It never stops. So what started happening is reductions in what the company would pay for. Right now, we have a police officer who has a $35,000 a year medical coverage, which is 41% of his salary. That's huge. Going back to Governor Abbott, this is something we cannot continue to do. Bartonville pays 50% of family coverage. We pay 75%. Copper Canyon has a stipend. It's $17,000 a year per employee, period. Then they get their own policies. So it's kind of all over the board in these smaller cities. I get it. I totally understand. It's a hook, but what can we afford to pay? So I'm just making a statement. I can tell you the budget committee's going to look at this. So. That's it for me. Thank you.
No, and Deb, that comes up every year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I expect that discussion will absolutely
What
happen.
happened? Yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you that for me, and we talked about it earlier, the police and fire are the third rail. All right? It's like Social Security. I'm just not willing to consider, for me.
And we've had that in every council discussion, 'cause I came in, again, corporate America, where I was paying more and more and more and more every year and getting less and less and less coverage every year. And so I came in thinking 75% of family, spouse, the whole 9 yards. And we did look at that, and at least paying, at one point, 75% of the employee, but only 50% of spouse or children. And quickly learned that at this point in time, we were having a hard time getting police in the first place. And quickly learned that we could not get police and get them to stay if we did that. So that's why we didn't go down the last few years. But it's always good to look at it every year.
Every
'cause
year.
It
Yes.
changes.
Yeah.
It's a constantly changing landscape.
Yeah, I mean, because we all know it goes up double digits every year, and it becomes unsustainable at some point, so.
That's why this year, when it came in At 2%,
2%.
we're like, oh my gosh, thank God.
I thought Chris was trying to pull a fast one.
Yeah,
on
we
me.
didn't know what he
He
was
called me
doing.
and said 2%. I'm like, what
But
are you
it's-
smoking?
It's an interesting discussion because you kind of have to look at radios or insurance.
Right.
You know, and what's more important at this point, I would think, if we can keep the radio, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the quotes are or anything, but the insurance would probably be one that we wouldn't want to touch.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Just one final, Chris, on the engineering fees, when you talked about recouping. So have you got in the budgeted revenues, the recoup for the engineering?
Good question, because that additional revenue is not showing. That's something I was going to be sharing with
Okay.
council later as an option for
For
balancing
adding
our
into
budget.
the
Yeah,
revenue
right.
budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch on that one.
Thank you.
So we did have a couple of folks raise their hand when we started this. So I got 3. So any particular order, someone just wants, so it's Bernie, David, and who's that in the back?
It's hard to see because of the light.
Billy. So, yeah, it's just. Now,
David White.
Real quick before you, so we did post on the agenda that we will have a hard stop at noon. So just so everybody knows. And not anything was ever going to get finished today. This is the start. This is not, we're not even to the middle yet. So,
David White, 240 Shady Hill. This is about the Page Double Oak proposed 2026 property tax rate. And just looking at the numbers, the denominator for the cost per median valuation of $725,200 is somewhere between $1,022 and $1,050, depending on how you do these estimated revenues. So I don't know what the number is, or what the number of homes in Double Oak is. Is it around 1,050?
yeah.
1145, okay. Then I was going to say that, is it accounting for people like me that have the frozen property taxes?
Do you have a hard number on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in the,
Okay, I just want to make sure that the number
Yeah,
we're
that-
saying here, showing a rate going to .195 of $1,416.
Again, that number is just based upon the median household assessed valuation, and that is provided to us by the county. And that is the median assessed valuation based upon people with the average exemptions. Okay, it gives you a picture
Right.
of what the median, again, not average, the median household is from a tax perspective, what the impact would
When
be.
you built that 5-year chart on income, did you look at the ages of our homeowners? Were you able to forecast at what rate we would start to see more and more tax rates frozen?
I kept it at the same percentage that it increased this year. Remember, I said we had a very small increase for the projected for the upcoming year of only like about 0.5%. And so I kept it at that projection.
you know, unfortunately, we don't have the
best case-
information on the birth dates.
Best case, it's going to stay the same. Worst case,
Yeah.
It's going
revenues
up.
are going to go down.
Yeah.
Or people
That's all,
will
that's all
sell-
I'm saying, is that
people will sell
when
and
you're doing this
people will move in.
calculation and you look at proposed raising the taxes, factor in how many people are not going to be affected by it.
Roger that, yeah.
But hopefully young people will move in.
Oh, no, but let me just clarify that
Please,
really
please clarify.
quick, because when we come up with the final property tax rate, we have the discussion, it's going to, there's a formula that is built in that excludes the people who are exempt, who are capped.
Right.
So that's how I'm able to give a projection for next year based on our existing property tax,
Okay,
because.
so when we do it again next year,
Uh-huh.
how do you know how many people's property will be frozen?
I don't. There's no way to know, and also there's no way for me to know what the assessed valuation value would be, or the taxable assessed valuation value is going to be
So
each and
then
every
how-
year.
how is there a
You can,
formula
you can only do it based upon how that number has changed in the past, keeping the tax rate the same.
Well, Denton CAD provides us, in the report, they provide us the total valuation that has the 65 exemption.
Correct.
So we can't necessarily go by the individual homes, but we can go by the total assessed
Correct.
value.
Next year, the
And that value,
calculation,
that valuation for those, for that group, people 65 and older, won't increase. It's going to be the other valuation, the non-65, where the valuation, a change in valuation can change the property tax revenue.
We.
Correct.
It's tied to a rate, not, so, David, if your house today is worth $500,000 and you freeze your rate at 1%, but next year, and so you're frozen, so your rate's only going to be 1%.
correct.
But if next year your house goes to $600,000, it's 1% of 600,000, not 1% of 500.
No, my rate is frozen
The rate-
by
The rate is frozen, but the value of the home.
The value, everything is frozen.
Everything is frozen.
Everything-
They do not
freeze
pay,
Valuation.
I pay,
You do
let's
not-
say, I paid
wonder why.
$1,000 2 years ago. I paid $1,000 last year.
Yep.
I pay $1,000 this year.
yeah.
No matter what your tax rate is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to
No, you're right.
get to
Yeah.
y'all.
Yeah.
And
You're
I will
exactly-
say that the county will provide each and every year a calculation, a formulation
Right.
that includes me into it. So next year's calculation will be different than this year.
Exactly, it
So
changes
it's hard
every
to
year.
project out. You have to use what you've got.
Exactly,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Does this also include, so we give an exemption also, Double Oak gives an exemption.
It includes that as well,
So it
yes.
includes that exemption as well.
Yes, it's a
And we
2%
don't only
right
have
now.
one for 65 and over, we have one for everybody, correct?
We have-
We have one.
The 2% is for everybody. the
For every
65
Double Oak
and
resident.
over.
So that's included in this, but is that
Yes, it
another
is.
lever that could be used for not going up on taxes, on the rate?
I don't I didn't hear the first part of your
Is
question.
that 2% always 2%? I'm just asking a question.
It's
Or is that
2%
something
unless
that-
council changes it.
Or the council can change that as well? Because that's
Yes.
something I haven't seen anywhere in any paperwork to
Yes.
show that the council also has that to look at.
That is an option for council, yes.
Thank you, David. Bernie?
Is this mic turned on? Do I need the mic?
Speak from the diagram.
Oh, yell, no. Thanks,
Bernie, I
Chris.
do need you to speak into the mic, especially because for the YouTube
Correct.
audience. they need
Oh,
to-
okay. Thanks, Chris and staff, for putting all this data together. It's a lot to digest. And in preparation for this meeting, I went back and made some notes yesterday on the, I think it was March, the McAdams report, and the forecast that you all put together then. And sitting here for the last 90 minutes, kind of compared some numbers. Obviously, I don't have a spreadsheet available here, so I did some math in my head and stuff too. But I just want to share some general comments with everybody that really focus on, I'll call it the macro approach rather than the micro approach to this cycle of budgeting right now. I mean, Deborah made some outstanding points that I'm certain that you guys will all deliberate until the cows come home and stuff too, but I want to focus on revenue. But before I do that, a comment about David. Judy and I have started our 53rd year here, and I passed age 65 decades ago, and he's right. Plus, one other very critical thing we have to take into consideration in terms of the baseline for the assessed valuations. I've paid zero property taxes for 15 years to Denton County School, or LISD, because my property taxes are frozen. And that's portable. If we decide to move to a resort place, what have you, I get to take that base with me, so long as it's still in the state of Texas. So basically, it's got huge, huge ramifications in terms of what's happening to the age of your population and stuff, too. It's a big, big number. And for our city tax, I think our number is frozen some $900. And regardless of, our house on the assessed valuations since I turned 65 has gone from about $300,000 to $1 million. My taxes, the taxes that I pay are exactly the same as it was 15 years ago. So it's a big, big number, big number. Chris, go back to the very last slide for a second.
Which one was that?
I think the summary.
The graph.
Yeah, the graph.
He wants to talk about revenue versus expenditures.
And I hope my math is right here, adding this up on my telephone.
This one here, Bernie?
Yes. If you look at the two bottom numbers there, and I've added those across. Basically, each of those red numbers, starting there with the first year of $62,000, that's at the end of the day, you can go through all this fund accounting and generally accepted accounting principles and what have you, but it's cash flow that's going to determine your survival rates and your options. That is a negative cash flow number for that particular year under that scenario of no growth. Obviously, the next one's the same. But I added up going across that horizontal line just to see what the cash flows are on either a dilutive basis or an accretive type of a basis. And the number I came up with for the red lines is a negative $757,000, which is about what it was on the plan last March. I think that one was $742,000. And, you know, Dan, I think you asked the question a little while ago, well, what happens if we had an alternative type of development? Well, we had one back in March, and it was, I think, 16 residential lots on it. It basically makes no difference on it. It decreased that negative cash flow number, like $42,000 was all. The bottom number here, with the development, if you add them across, it's a positive $325,000 cumulative cash flow. That is, in round numbers, $1 million difference between just these two scenarios. If we had a spreadsheet, and I'm sure you guys would do it, you could run alternative scenarios till the cows come home. But I decided just to try to figure out, for my own edification here, what would have to happen to our tax rate and the assessed valuation under the no-growth scenario to fill that gap of $757,000. Basically, the city would have to increase the tax rate to the statutory permissible ceiling of 3.49% every year for those 5 years. What's the probability of that happen? I mean, I don't know. What would then have to happen to the assessed valuation basis to also fill that negative gap? And the assessed valuation basis would have to grow by 6% every year for 5 years. So the combination of just those two scenarios, it only reduces that negative $757,000 by $600,000. What does that mean? If our rainy day fund, which is our uncommitted cash balance, is at $1.2 million at the start of our fiscal year here right now, it would drop below $500,000, which obviously would put us in violation of, was it 4 months, 5 months, 6 months of operating expenses, just as a point of reference. Okay? I'm not advocating one growth strategy over another, but I've done enough corporate restructurings for the last 58 years, 6 or 7 dozen of these. And you always got to look at operational triage to see where you can save some money. Never in any one of those 6 or 7 dozen corporate restructurings, public and private companies, have they been able to save their way to profitability. It's about revenue. At the end of the day, it's all about revenue. Just pass that along. The other point I'd like to make, Dan, I think what you're referring to is rollback taxes. When a property transfers from ownership and rezoning goes from Ag 1 to a commercial under the state of Texas, basically the buyer of that property has to pay property taxes at the closing table for 3 years based upon the statutory rate. If this property closes, say in the first quarter of this year, it's rezoned, the buyer has approximately 120 days to do his final due diligence and get his financing finalized. Then at the closing table at the title company, the city, based on my calculations, at a $9 million exchange value, which is it's probably the upper end of the range for this property right now, it's $48,000 rather than the $24,000. You know, my math might be off because I'm doing this on my telephone today, but it's a windfall to the town, whenever, if and whenever it closes and stuff, so.
Oh, come back. So if it goes from ag, where they're paying tax on 200,000 now, to commercial, where they're paying, where the valuation is 9 million, you're saying the only benefit to the town is $48,000?
Yeah, if my math is right.
Not the only benefit.
Let's clarify.
That's the rollback that he's talking about of if there's a change in what the land is being used for, like going from ag to commercial, part of the closing process is they would have to go back and pay us 3 years' worth of that time when it was not ag, of which it would be like a one-time income to the
And
city.
that 3 years would be based on the valuation of
9 million.
9 million.
Right. But so there would be a one-time blip in our revenue, for lack of a better term, whenever somebody makes a major zoning change, the county does go back 3 years, and they would have to write us a check for $40,000, $50,000, just a one-time thing. I believe that's what Mr. Carrigan
And
was
that's not
referring to.
limited to commercial. That's if they lose, if the property changes hands, Denton County, remember, Denton County's zoning is completely irrelevant to double O zoning.
Exactly.
We could have zoning ag or commercial, but if Denton County sees it as ag, they get the exemption. So what Bernie's referring to, and I'm familiar with that because my research with Denton County Central Appraisal District. If a property changes hands, the ag exemption does not automatically move forward. The new owner has to apply again for the ag exemption. Now, this is where I'm not sure, but if they don't get it, they actually have to go back and make up the difference in the property tax for the previous 3 years.
That's correct.
That's the rollback you're talking about. So yes.
Exactly.
And
But that's not related, that's not just commercial, that's any change of ownership on a property.
We will be seeing the same thing with the recent change that was made to the 250 Simmons
That's where I was
property.
going to go. 250 Simmons went from, most of that land was ag property. Now, if you noticed on the tax rolls, they're, I think, third, is it correct? They're third, and they haven't even put anything above, what, a foot off the ground? I mean, I haven't been over there lately. So, and as that property improves, the value is going to go up, and it'd be just the same thing. It'd be like if you put a garage on your land.
Yeah, so we'll be getting that rollback payment to us. Now, from a purely budgeting perspective, I don't like to include one-time blips in, as you're doing projections and things of that sort.
No, I would say it goes in the balance sheet.
Right. That just helps the balance sheet at the end of the day.
My example, my calculation is very simple math. $9 million at our 17.8 cents per 100 valuation for 3 years comes out to $48,060 due from the title company to town of Double O the day that that property transfers. So there's a little bit more numbers you could add to that. Also last spring, for my own edification, I guess, I own an investment banking firm, but we don't do any municipal bond work. I got a lot of friends in the muni work. In the event that Patrick would ever piggyback some kind of a Denton County bond issue, what would it cost us if the council voted to go into debt to pave Kings Road roughly 2 miles? So I asked him to run a scenario, and this is obviously have to be updated and stuff too, but in order to do a $9 million, $20 million bond offering, and based upon the fact that we got no debt and the kind of numbers we're looking at right now, we got outstanding credit in the eyes of the underwriters of a bond offering. But if we floated a $9 million, 20-year bond, we would have to increase our tax rate to double what it is right now. In other words, we'd have to put aside in a sinking fund an additional 17.8 cents per 100 for 20 years to amortize the principal and interest payment to retire a $9 million bond. Just put that in your thinking cap. Basically double our rate to fix 2 miles of Kings Road for $9 million, which, I mean, I don't know when that estimate was made. It might be $12 million today, but it's a big number, a big, big number, Mr. Harris. So if you like, I could write a memorandum to the council with all these numbers and scratches.
If you would please,
So in that bond example you give, as people hit 65, would that affect the requirements? I mean, would we have to increase the rate on people who weren't 65 in order to pay that out?
No, it's a separate calculation. It's basically a sinking fund. It'd be a separate line item on our tax
Right.
invoice and stuff, too. The only way it could possibly have an impact would be on the general credit rating of the town, but I don't think that's going to have an impact. 'Cause our credit rating right now, if we were to go to a bond underwriting agency, would be, we get AAA, just because of the way the town has these excess, we call it the rainy day fund, so. Any questions, comments? Would you like me to put all this in a memorandum and offer you all's
if you
review?
would, please.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Give me a couple of days.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Billy?
Billy Garrett, 103 West Ruth. I just have a couple of comments and suggestions. One, on the, and Chris, you might want to just go to one of the pages that has the budget, the prior budget, the proposed. I think one thing that would probably help the citizens, just because even me looking at this, I'm like, okay, projection, do a better titling of this is your actual projection in column 2, I think. If you go back up. So where it says budget 25-26 and then projected 25-26, that's your projected actuals, I'm presuming, correct? So if you go back to the revenue, I think this might help Chris from a sales tax perspective. So Chris, if you take the $45,000 increase, that's year-over-year budget increase, which calculates out to $37.50 a month.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So
Okay, your titles are a little misleading, and you don't, I mean, not misleading, they're just not guiding the residents to what your increase is year-over-year budget, not increase over your actuals,
Yeah.
which might be a
You're
better,
there.
you know, especially like when you get to, you're doing a 2% COLA, you know, it kind of, and you might even have to do a change in budget where, yes, you had this, but you've had some changes that it didn't really change your budget that you approved last year, but it kind of bases what you're going off of, right? So that's just some suggestions.
So we
from
did that
a-
in the past. We put,
Yeah.
remember, we used to have a little comment button
Yeah.
that we'd put in there?
So something like that, and then just some different titles to kind of help guide.
All right, so just for
you know.
clarification, so the increase is the increase in budget, not the increase in budget over,
That's what he's
Actual.
showing. Yeah, I had to do,
Okay.
some of them I had to do, but on this one, so Chris, if you look at the sales tax, your projection toward the end of the year, based on what you're going to budget, your proposed budget, that's where he's saying it's staying flat. So I was trying to jump in when we were talking about it, but I thought, well, I'll just wait. So that's just kind of, from me, from my accountant brain, how I think it would lay out better if you just kind of maybe tweaked your titles a little bit. So I think it would help the citizens and maybe help people who don't, that perspective. Other thing, from a insurance perspective, you can do a PPE where you're doing a price per employee, but you only got 12. So it doesn't really compute that way. And Pat, I hear what you're saying, but my company absorbs most of my insurance costs. So you have it both ways.
Right.
If you pass on more of what the town's cost, your COLA's going to have to increase. Because basically you're taking a pay cut
That is
to your
correct.
employees. So it's a trade-off of what you do. And I hear, Deb, I hear what you're saying, but you have to trade that off because, I mean, if my employer, 21 years ago, my insurance was free. It's very little, we're self-insured though. But so we do a trade-off and we do analysis and ours is price per employee. But we also have 120 employees. So it's easier to do it that way than when you have 12. I think what Chris is doing, just from what I do and how we do it, I think what he's doing is feasible. I know you're always going to have changes where you have kids that are going to drop off, you're going to have family dynamics that change, but with 12 employees, it's really hard to do a price per employee.
Yep.
And plus, if you increase that cost on your budget, you got to find it somewhere. So you're going to
Yep.
cut something somewhere to pick up. I mean, I hear everything. This is just kind of my 2 cents in what, but yeah, so I think for the most part, you know, but the other thing that I would recommend that you do, because I think this shows the citizens, because I know some people, I think you need to show the Denton County, show like the 5 years of this is what the assessed values have done. Because while I think that somewhere where I've heard in the past, you've increased the revenue. Well, we didn't really increase it, Denton County did, because of your assessed property values. I know what they think my value went up this year is, and I beg to differ, but they chose otherwise. So that, I think that's something that would help the citizens is to, because we used to show that.
Right.
We used to talk about it for a while. I think you guys have improved what you've done. But I think showing that also shows the citizens, this is what the valuations in totality have done over 5 years or whatever, so that you just kind of get, maybe even over the last 2 or 3 years, just to see, this is what Denton County's done. If you're not, I mean, and then I get into the catch-22 of, I go fight my property taxes, I know what that does to our revenues, but, you know, it's all that. So I think that would just be helpful to show the valuations that Denton County, and just even the piece parts of 65, just the high level, to see what those valuations have done, because I think that would help the citizens in general
Yeah,
to
we-
kind
we-
of just see
we can
that.
put that together. Yeah, one thing about the DCAD reports, so they are way,
They're
well,
way,
I know, but they are, they break, so 5 years ago when I got involved in this,
Mm-hmm.
it all remember, it just lumped into a number? Now they have them all broken out. Now, it's a lot more pages and it's a lot more data. But, so we'll have, the farther we go back, we'll have the valuations and stuff, but we won't have the breakout as much as we will over the last 2 years.
yeah.
So-
I just
and
think
we'll-
that.
We'll try and massage it the best we
Yeah,
can.
I just think that would be helpful, because like for me, I mean, I know what mine's doing, but from an overall global perspective, you know, some people are fighting, some people are not, you know, some people have done it every year, because I can look at values and go, wow, they've been on their Ps and Qs ever since they've lived here, where we were not, you know, but that's on me, right? And so I just think that would be helpful to the town to kind of see what those total valuations are doing, especially if you talk about 250 Simmons, where it's coming on, you'll clearly be able to see that now.
Yeah, it's.
You know,
it's-
in the value, it's a big number.
Right.
So that's really all I had at this point, so thank you.
And Billy, that was one of the things I think after I came on council and looked at insurance, one of the reasons council didn't change was because of the exact thing you're saying. You're giving them a pay cut. And so
Yeah.
they're going to look elsewhere and say, especially our police officers at the time, I'm not going to take a pay cut if I go over to Bartonville. I'm not going to take a pay cut if I
Right.
go over here.
Yeah,
They
if
can
you
move.
start reducing that rate that you're picking up on their insurance,
Right.
you've got, I mean, you're going to have to take it somewhere else.
And at a 2% COLA, which is all that Chris put in here, the average right now for not Denton County, for DFW Metroplex is 2.6 in May. But that's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that's the COLA that they are saying happened. So we're actually below
Yeah,
the
I mean, and I know
Metroplex.
we can play with that, you know. And so, and then just maybe on a completely different sheet, just show what the actuals truly are right now, just so that people, if they want to do that comparison themselves, just put the actuals on a page out there that kind of line out with all of them. You don't necessarily have to do it. I mean, that's a lot, you're going to run out of, run out of real estate on your paper if you start throwing all of them in there, but if you just threw the actual, true actuals in there year to date, that would kind of help the the numbers people of the world versus, because I was like, what is that? And then I'm like, oh, wait, I know what that column is. So I think that would just be some helpful things to the town.
Thank you, Billy. Real quick, it's 11:30. We're going to go till noon, but I would like to take the next 5 minutes to figure out when we're going to meet next and what time and what we're going to do and all that. I want to do that now, so we're not rushing at the end.
What about the speakers? There's Chris.
I'm sorry, did I miss someone?
He's standing right here.
He's just standing up.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just standing? I'm sorry.
We make him stand at all the meetings.
I got you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Chris, what is your thought process for, because we're getting the high level overview.
No,
taken care of today.
in my opinion, we've had a great discussion today about a lot of different things, and there's still a few more things I want to go over to get, to nail down so we can have a focus. There's different options we can do in terms of meeting to, again, as a group, just for a budget workshop. Obviously, we can do another Saturday morning if that's what we want to do. We can do that. What a lot of towns do is like the mayor said, you can either chunk out a time out of your regular scheduled meeting, or what a lot of towns will do is they'll schedule the meeting like an hour before. So instead of meeting at 7, you meet at 6 o'clock before the council meeting, and it's basically a budget workshop. But since everyone's here anyway, we're not coming on a whole separate time. We can schedule some time like before the next council meeting, which is on the 17th, and have it just set aside just for a budget
Okay, so
review.
let's say hypothetically we did that,
Uh-huh.
right? And so we're constrained, A, to 1 hour, right? And B, when 7 o'clock arrives and we start the town hall meeting,
Yes?
we're gonna go back and recycle. So then we're gonna have to go through the minutes and pledges, and essentially, if we say, okay, now we're gonna go ahead and allot another hour, it seems to me broken and disjointed. I would rather, even if rather than saying we're gonna tack on, or even if we said we want to avoid, surrendering another Saturday morning, I would rather have a separate meeting in the evening. That's fine, but I'd like to sit down and.
That is
and just
totally
dig
up
into
to
it
what council
as-
wants to do.
as opposed to- as opposed
I'm just
to-
giving you options.
Yeah, I would like to dig in as opposed to trying to take it in small bites.
Okay,
I agree.
very fair.
But
So-
when doesn't matter to me. I can do another evening, I can do a Saturday, I'm fine either way.
I can't do Saturdays.
Not-
No, I cannot. I have to work. I had to take a different job because they wouldn't let me off today. So, and I'm on vacation.
All right, so Chris,
So I can do any evening.
how about if Chris sends out an email to
Yeah.
us with a couple
Yeah,
of dates?
I will coordinate it. Just remember.
It's
we
not
have
going to be perfect, folks.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be doing something and all that other stuff.
Right.
We do have the mandatory 3-day posting requirements, and I gotta make sure I comply with
Right.
all posting requirements and all that. But I'll get a survey out to everyone real quick, see if we can pick another evening, get a good chunk of time in, couple hours, 2-3 hours, whatever it is. I'm pretty confident by that you're gonna have the information that you need to make good logical decisions. Because there are a few other slides that I really want to go over today, which I think will help expedite that. One, I want to have a discussion about property tax today, and delve into that just
Okay.
a
Yeah, you
little
got-
bit more.
You got 27 minutes. Here, give me that clicker. We're putting you on the clock now.
Oh, no problem. And again, it's to set up future
Correct.
discussions.
That is
I mean,
correct.
again, we've had some really, really good positive discussions today, and but in your packet, there's one of the pages called Proposed 2026 Property Tax Rate. At the last council meeting, we approved what's called the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. Those, again, it's just a reminder, that's the high and the low, that council, you have the authority to set the tax rate without going to a vote of the people. And it's right up here as well on the screen. I just want to let you know from a estimated revenue perspective of what that means. If you went with the no new revenue rate, I mean, basically, our estimated revenue would stay the same. I mean, it might be up a few dollars, but it's basically, it means your total revenue received for property tax would stay the same. If council,
Again,
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask, how is that possible?
how is what?
Because the people, I mean, the 1.35 that we will have received by the end of this year is based on people turning 65 this year. We're going to have more people in the next 12 months turn 65 and freeze their rates.
The numbers that we received from the county
These are
includes
county-
the 65 plus that, because the
Well,
rate,
then, it's just not possible that
Sure it
our
is.
revenue will be the same. If we
sure it
don't-
is.
if we-
Because you also have increased exemptions, okay, that occurred, and you have more people filing protests on their assessed
That's my point.
valuation.
I think the number goes down.
No, it won't go down, because on the opposite side, for every permit that we pull, any improvement to a house, anything like that, the county will, on the opposite side, increase people's valuations based upon improvement. So it's on both sides, Chris, and so we send a report once a month, basically showing all our permits and all of our approvals. So they're including that side of it on the assessed valuation, so it's kind of both sides.
Okay.
Okay. But, again, showing at the high level, the highest rate that this council could do without going to the vote of the people would be .195296. That's what we all approved at the last meeting. What that means in real estimated revenue, that means that we would receive a total of 1.447 million, which is roughly a little less than $100,000 over our budget right now.
And that would increase someone whose house is 725 by 1,400 a year?
Yeah, based upon the one that I gave you. Sorry. Yes, based upon the average median cost, they're again, median, this is just not everybody, but their property tax bill would go up by $119.
So what is the 1416?
That's what, that would be that's what they would pay, but it would go up by $119. Okay? So their payment would be $1,416. Okay?
But you have to remember that the value of the home is going up, so even at the .17, you're still getting more revenue, because the
No.
values are going up, yes. Yes,
Because right now, we're saying that they're, with the existing rate, they're paying
exactly.
$1,297, okay? At the highest rate, it'd go up to $1,416, which is a difference of $119. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So I just wanted to give you guys a sample of what that means to not the average, but the median assessed valuation out there. Everyone's going to have a different number, but that is the median number. And it would bring into the town an additional $92,000 a year in property tax collections.
Which, going back to the projections that you presented earlier, really only covers our budget, forecasted budget expense for maybe 2 years with increased cost.
I want to make
If
sure
we
I
don't-
understand what you're saying.
If we don't have the development as is, if we max out to our current property tax rate, and we increased our property taxes by $90,000 for next year and maybe $100,000 the following year, our expenses would overcome that additional revenue probably within the next 3 to 4 years?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, and that's where, Dan, you touch on a good point, but that's where I'm scared to death of what's going to happen in our state legislature next year, because we're sitting here thinking that if we did this scenario and we could go up to the max rate without going to voter, will it be there a year from now for us to do the same thing? That's the unknown, is if Abbott would do this, he's gonna do, if he gets his way, he's gonna put this in right away. It'll be on next November's ballot, to which then citizens of the state of Texas will be voting for what they think is a great thing, unless you're working in small-town government, which it's not a great thing. So that's the scary part, is that, because if he caps it at 2%, and today we can go to 3.49, that's almost 1.5% that you can't do. And we are going to show a scenario with that just because we have to. So, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, that obviously at the bottom of the page, I would just like to remind everybody, I mean, where we sit as a town as it relates to what other towns are charging for their property tax. And again, it's purely for comparison purposes. That does not include, for example, Bartonville. They have their ESD charges on top of that for ESD Fire and ESD EMS that we don't have because we have a volunteer fire department and we have our contract with Flower Mound. So this is just purely what is in the truth of taxation with the county of what everybody's property tax rates are. For historical purposes, over the last 5 years, our tax rate used to be at 0.22.
0.22?
Using these numbers here, we were at 0.22, but over the last probably 3-4 years ago, our property tax rate was actually reduced over a period of time and then has flattened out at this 0.178. I just want to give, especially for the new council members, just a historical perspective on that. Is we have actually reduced since 5-6 years ago our tax rate over what it used to be.
And we were able to do that because our increased in values in our homes.
Yes.
So this was a debate, Billy, if you recall.
Right.
We had a debate on this that eventually, and I think it was your words, you said something like, but eventually this is going to catch up and we're not going to be able to do this. We are at that day, or that year, I should say.
Chris, can you show that next slide, the slide after that, the revenue sources, or do you have that?
Sure. This one?
No, the graph, it's a graph.
The graphic.
This one.
Oh,
For different towns.
This one.
You know what I'm talking about?
This one. Is it this one?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have that up
Okay,
on my
that's
screen.
fine.
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Where you want to go with that, Mike?
No, I just wanted people to see it. It's a very nice,
No, this is,
it's a nice graph to see.
it is a nice
related
graph.
to-
It was presented, I stole this actually from the McAdams report that they did. And
Yeah.
it basically breaks down every town's property tax, not only for their property tax rate, but it includes any debt service rate that they have for their property tax, if they're included in ESD 1 and ESD 2. And basically what it shows them is, when you add up all those other items that could be on people's property tax roll, Double Oak is by far the lowest property taxed town in the area, is basically what it shows.
Right, that's what I want to get to.
And that's just more for citizens to understand that as well, that it's not just what you saw as those rates. On top of that, they have ESD. On top of that, they have debt service. On top of that, they have all these different
Yeah,
things that.
I believe they have that in their,
But we don't-
I gave a packet out there, but I believe that chart is in the packet
Good.
that they have.
But we don't have debt service because
We don't have debt.
we don't have any businesses that, we don't have any debt.
No, we don't have debt. Debt doesn't relate
We're
to,
not carrying any bonds.
We're not carrying any bonds. We're
Exactly.
not- We have.
Right,
Right.
but businesses don't necessarily do the bonds. Some of it was like Justin, I believe, they have theirs for their fire service
True.
because they started a
True.
fire department. Copper
True.
Canyon started a police department.
Correct.
But
That's
So
you
right.
can-
that's what
you can-
causes
this-
that.
This graph is beautiful. I love being this one. But there's a lot of ways to read this. I think it's a great chart. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of ways to read into this more than all positive.
Why?
Because of the orange and the reds and the greens and what they mean, and really, what do they mean?
Well, those are
What
additional,
does debt service rate actually really mean?
That they have taken out some sort of a, think of it as a loan.
Right,
so those are loan payments.
for what?
For parks,
whatever.
it could be
Right.
parks, it could be streets, it could
So
be.
when you look
Right.
over on the far
So-
left, those numbers,
Yes.
right? That's the essential rate, that's the final rate, right? So because we have no debt,
Right,
right, because we're not, contracted with ESD 1 or 2,
right.
none of these are piling up. So,
It's a very positive-looking graph. Amanda, who's not here today, which I wish she would, she took this graph that McAdams showed everybody. I don't know if I was even on the
wasn't this
board
one.
yet. Yeah, it was one of these. Yes, it's this exact one. And she really dug into it and came out with a lot of negative and a lot of positive. I wish she was here today to go over it, but I just wanted to bring it up. But it's a beautiful graph, and I love being double up. But with that being said, I wish Amanda was here but she will be at some point.
it might have been a future chart, because this is
No,
just
this
about
is-
taxes.
Right, this
So
was it.
McAdams wouldn't have anything to do with that, would
No,
they?
this is
They just pulled the data.
McAdams'
They
graph.
got the data from Denton County.
This came from
Well,
McAdams.
This is all Denton County
Yeah,
data.
it's Denton County rolls of what they
Right,
pay out.
right.
Actually is what the chart
Right.
is. 'Cause that's what's billed to everybody on their property tax bills that you get.
Yeah, there's no projections on this graph at all.
No, there's no.
Purely the tax rate.
So I know we're going to be up against the clock here, so you got some other things you want to cover.
Yeah, just so that finally, one of the very first pages is kind of my summary of 26, 27. I just want to make sure it's completely transparent and open, and that we know, based upon the estimate, the proposed budget that as is submitted in front of you right now, we are to a negative
Can you
$62,000.
highlight that cell, please, and maybe blow it up a little bit?
Don't make it so small.
Oh, I tried to make it small on purpose. But no, it does.
Can you blow that up just a little bit, Chris? down
Of
at the bottom
course.
right? Yeah. It's okay to highlight that cell, too. There you go. It's okay.
Well,
Actually, we usually make
There
that
we
red since it is on the
Real
red,
quick.
just so we,
Bernie, you have a question?
I tried to hide it, but what?
we need to, that's important.
Questions, maybe it's some more research I've done. We got a lot of old friends in town that have been here a long, long time. It's not a statistically significant sample, but the way they're valuing our homes that are greater than 50 years old is different than what they're doing for the new parts of the home.
Correct.
And I don't know how we get that number, because it's accurate. I just talked to people who I know live in a 50-year-old home. And their assessed valuations are flat and going down for the last 3 years. Somehow that's got to be taken into consideration. Because every year, another 900 homes, double of them, are older, 1 year older. And somehow they're evaluating the valuation, not just based upon comparables, but your year of build-up, what they sort of do. And it's a good awakening to me when I start talking to some of these people in the last 4 or 5 months. Because underneath these numbers, there's a trend line going on here, guys, that our bailout of 15, 18 years of rapid inflation in our real estate prices, we're at the tipping point.
I know.
We're definitely at the tipping point, and it's scary what could happen. We have a sudden replay of what happened in 07 and 08, the real estate values, the basis upon which our 17.8 cents is calculated. We go upside down, literally, in 1 year in terms of our cash flows. Right about this rainy day fund, very easily.
So, thank you.
Another comment too. By the way, we're cutting some expenses. Let's turn the temperature up in here.
Binders.
So again, I mean, we are in what I would call a slight deficit based upon these assumptions. It's very doable in terms of, at least in my opinion, closing that gap. When you compare our gap with what some of our neighboring cities are dealing with, it's
I don't
something.
want to.
Yeah, this is golf.
Yeah.
right? I don't care what the other cities are, you know, what their situation is, right? We're competing against ourselves here.
Sure.
So the question is, how do we avoid this negative 62K?
Well, you have options, obviously, is it could be adjusted with the property tax rate, because again, this is assuming that our rate is as it is of today.
Right.
Okay? So if we decide to increase our property tax, that would go away. Okay? There, you can obviously take one of the things, and even when Deb was up here, that we need to anticipate potential new revenue for cost recovery efforts for our engineering costs. That would show up as, on the revenue side, as additional revenue, which would in essence reduce that number down by I would guess, roughly $25,000. We could probably get some more reimbursements back from that and identify that as a true revenue source. You can take a look at take a look at expenditures, see if we want to nickel and dime some expenditures to get that dollar amount there. We also talked about how conservative I was in my projections for sales tax.
Right.
Okay, which I was, and I told you I was. We could easily increase that sales tax projection up by $10,000 to $20,000, which, so I'm giving you guys options in terms of how to, like I said, the $62,000 is a very doable number based upon the discussion that we have had today.
So that's a lot. But as complex as it sounds, it really isn't. And when we get down to looking at these items that you all are going to bring your ideas to the table, then we'll discuss those. We'll have a working spreadsheet that we can maybe plug some things in and out of.
And Patrick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's really, really important. During all that and while we're having those discussions, staff is going to be working very, very closely with the Budget Committee to really dig down deep in some of these line items and get to the what I call the nitty-gritty part of budgeting. It was and stuff, and so I'm looking forward to working with them to maybe help identify some of those line item adjustments, which will reduce that $62,000 into a smaller number. So there's work to be done not only at the council level, but I look forward to working with the Budget Committee as well to help address some of those things as well. Just wanted to highlight that.
And yeah, obviously, the devil's advocate in me, worst case scenario in me, is the fact that we have done, previous councils, previous mayors have done a good job of trying to keep our rates as low as possible. With what could be on the horizon from our legislature, it may be in a situation where we can't just continue down that path. We may have to sit here and have a discussion about some sort of an increase, not to penalize the citizens, not to take money away from the citizens, but the reality of it is if we get behind and then we don't have the ability to catch up because of future state legislation, then we're going to have a problem. So that we will put some what-if scenarios out there. I don't want to pay any more property tax than I have to, but at the same time, when you look at how lean this town runs, we don't have a tremendous amount of fluff anywhere in this. We've tried to keep things low as possible, and as Billy had said years ago, it's like we're up against that wall. So these are just the things that we have to consider until we get to our next session, and then we can have additional discussion. I'm not in any way advocating that we're going to take a property tax. I'm just saying rate increase, but what I'm saying is that we have to consider all sides of this thing in order to make the smart decisions to approve a budget by the end of September. We are at 11:54. Linda, anything else?
No, sir.
Mike? Pat? Chris?
No.
Dan? No. Chris? Daisy? Anything from the audience real quick? Yes or no? Just, if you can be quick, please. You've all spent time here, you've all engaged, I appreciate it so much, so I just broke the rules again, I'm gonna get yelled at after the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, Andrew Weaver, North Hill Court.
would like the council to consider the idea that property values do not always go up, okay? We heard a little bit about that, but for those of us who owned homes in 2006 through 2008, we saw the values of our property go down between 20 and 30%. So the question for the council in scenario planning and managing risk is looking and saying, what happened to our property taxes in '08? What would happen to this town if property values went down 20%? Based on the 1.35 million in property tax, that would be about $270,000 that would come off the top line. If it went down to 30, that would be 405. What, from a risk management and a scenario planning, what would be the reserves you would have to carry to partially mitigate that, so we didn't have to start laying off police officers? They're not giving the volunteer fire department $100,000. So I ask, in terms of scenario planning, that you consider what happened in '06 through '08, and if that happened again, remember, housing prices go up and up and up till they don't. So I ask the council to consider that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I think that's a good close there. So, citizens, thank you for being here. Deb, thank you. Bernie, Billy, David, Andrew, all those who partook, appreciate that. We will get the survey done for the next meeting. We'll get it out as soon as possible. And I thank everybody for being here today, and have a great rest of your Saturday. It is now 11:56. The meeting is adjourned.
That's exactly.